I don't know. Can she hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the June 15th, 2023 Town of Summerville Design Review Board meeting. As applicants come up, just make sure you state your name and your role in the project. That is helpful to us. First order of business is approving the minutes from the May and April meeting. Is there a motion for approval
Make a motion to approve.
or amend? Yeah,
We don't want to move anything, do we?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Motion to approve as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Tim, no signs?
No signs.
All right, the first item is 155 Droz Road. We've seen you a couple times. If you could just come up and state any changes. Floor is yours.
All right, so the first item is a request for final approval for a proposed 70-unit townhouse community on 7.25 acres. This was last before the board in April, and where they received preliminary approval. I mean, pretty straightforward, truthfully. The 70 units are spread across 15 buildings, 4 to 5 unit configurations, the amenity center and pool also included. Units are rear access alley fed with 1-car garage and an open parking space. The 6-foot depth front porches with were added, as well as a near full width unit for that front porch. Side elevations do have windows, horizontal and board and batten siding is proposed. The roofing materials include architectural shingles, standing seam on the porch roofs. The amenity center details include a full metal roof. And the site amenities include the pool, dog park, and walking path. The applicant has provided a good example of what the changes were in the packet. They are here. So if anybody would like to you open to the floor to the applicant, or if the board has questions for me.
Thank you, Design Review Board, Jeff Roberts, JDR Development. Thank you for the privilege and opportunity to present our final ERB submittal. But before we do that, I'd just like to say that the process of coming before this board on the project has been very helpful to get to the time that we were made and helpful in actually improving the project which we incorporated. So thank you for that.
I'm not quite as loud as Mr. Roberts. Thank you, board. Again, my name is Patrick Head. I will just walk through the project and show you the changes that we made since last time. And then Daryl Patterson is on the Zoom if there's any architectural questions that come up. So if you want to advance the slide. So this view, I think, shows the roof changes we made. I think there's a really good comment about our rear elevations being a little bit, let's say, not as good as the front. And so we spent most of the changes we made, we spent a lot of time on that rear facade. Initially, the comment was about the buildings that were facing directly from the porches. However, we liked the change so much that we carried it through the entire project. I think it enhances it. And when you looked at especially these these views and the view from the front entry and sort of saw that long, flat rooftop, it just didn't have the same depth and architectural play that the front did. So we like the change, and that's what we've made. The other main changes include Clubhouse Roof. We've made it all standing seam, whereas previously we had a standing seam porch and architectural shingle on the upper roof. We've made it all standing seam, as well as the cabana at the pool. If you go ahead and clip through some of these, so not much has changed here that you can perceive. Here you can see that those buildings in the background now you have gable roofs, the standing seam roof. Go ahead and flip through. Yep. And then we'll get to a comparison sheet, which will make it a lot simpler for me to explain it all to you. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay, so stop here. So here you can see those rooftop changes that occurred. Next slide. And again here, so brought a lot more variation to the rear facades. It also changed the siding. You can have more differentiation between the units and just gives a better architectural experience. Next slide. All right, so getting to the clubhouse, besides the roof, the other minor change on this building was the introduction of a mud board at the bottom details I've mentioned. Just gives it a little bit more residential feel and matches the detailing of the other buildings. Next slide. You can see those changes on each. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then at this building, nothing changed on the front. Go to the next slide. At the rear, you can see the difference. We now have 3 gables on the rear and the slight change in siding typology, which I think gives it a lot more, feels more like the front of the building. So it's not just kind of a sad back. Also, just to point out in this view, I think the board had a question about the AC locations, which were in our more technical set, but not really shown in these drawings. It's pointed out in the top elevation, one of them, it's under that window next to the rear entry stair. And we are proposing a small wood screen in front of it, so you don't really see the unit from the road. Then also a little bit of strip space there for some plants, so that's give a little bit of green on that rear elevation. Next slide. Go ahead and just roll through these, Tim. I know you have a big agenda tonight, so we'll just kind of get through it. Next. Okay, so this also, we added this drawing just to show you where those AC unit locations are, next to the rear access door, and then there'll be a screen in front of them, as well as some planting. And then this drawing also points out the location of the electric meters, which would be on the side wall of the garage, sort of the most out of the way location that we could find, the least visible from the public space. Next slide. And then in this drawing, this is just the site civil, actually probably easier to see in the landscape. The only change, go ahead to the landscape drawing. You can see a few of the transformer locations that have been proposed for Dominion. Dominion currently has our civil set and is doing their design work on the electrical layout throughout the neighborhood, as well as the lighting. The lighting will be the pictures that we showed you last time. And the civil engineer has proposed 3 potential transformer locations. The first being at the front near the ponds, sort of at the fire truck turnaround by the dog park. You can see a little black square. And then one next to building O in the sort of planted area there. And then all the way bottom left corner, there's one more in the planted perimeter strip. Okay. And then we go to the next slide. That's the bottom images, or sort of an example of the utility screening that we were proposing in front of the AC unit. That would be the extent of all the changes. Oh. And conceptual. Yep.
All right, any questions of the
Yeah,
applicant or? Any questions?
I have one question. The hammerhead turnaround by the dog park, is that supposed to stay green? Is
Yes, we're gonna use a grass pave.
there a way of delineating that so that they know they can drive on it?
It'll be marked with reflectors. What we'll have there.
You got a better detail of that on the site plan?
If you go up to the civil site plan, that's not, you'll have to go into the. I don't have the exact detail of that, but that I think will be caught in TRC, which we're also in the process of concurrently with this. In other words, I don't have civil engineers, I can't tell you what is required for that.
Okay, so
I
that's,
know that there will be, a series of, there'll be a sign and there'll be reflectors in the ground that show the fire trucks where they can go.
and it's made up of grass pavers or pervious pavers?
It's a grass pave system specifically for fire trucks.
Okay.
Is there a subdivision entry sign?
Not currently. We don't have a sign proposed.
We can, depending on what the requirements are, we certainly can create a very nice looking entry monument. We just didn't have that created yet. But we can certainly bring an entry monument back and we'll review it. Quite nice.
And I don't believe you're required to have one, but if you are, it'll come back.
We,
Yeah.
we would have it. This development is really, we plan on doing a top-notch job. It's a for sale product. So we would certainly miss
Mm.
economically disadvantaged, which we never want to be,
Sure.
have an entry.
We haven't chosen a name, so we haven't made the sign,
So you would-
developed the sign, but
They'd bring that back.
And Tim, I think if we could see even if it's a staff level, see what the grass paved detail is, because there's some out there that look great, there's some out there that aren't. And then I
the,
have faith that y'all will choose a good one, but we just need to
the
verify.
grass pave system we were intending to use, I don't know if you've seen it, it's like a honeycomb system.
Yeah.
And so it just looks like grass. It doesn't actually have there's no paver. It's like a mat system
Yeah,
that's embedded. That's what we were intending to use.
if you use that one, I think we'd be fine with that.
Did you do a foot candle layout of the interior lighting
On the, of
And the
the,
of the roadways and
go-
the sidewalk?
you go to the back page. And I believe there's we haven't done a foot candle layout, but we're using Dominion's light, which is this one. So we're waiting for their layout to get back to us to see what we have. These lights are, they have the covered top, so it doesn't just splatter light everywhere. It sort of controls its location.
One of our previous comments was, I think, I just saw it, but to look and see if you could light the Droz Road.
Yeah, we're waiting from Dominion to see if that's possible. I don't see why you can't.
Okay.
You should have that information back shortly.
And then when foot candles come back, make sure the vehicular entrance is lit on Droz Road so that you can see it rather than just having parking lot lighting.
Right.
Right. Okay. Any other comments? You have any other comments?
Is there any roadway improvement happening? Left turn lane, right turn
Yeah.
lane?
As part of we did a traffic impact analysis study for this project. So that's a county road. And there was no improvement requested or required for that road. It's such a low, it's a low impact use for a small townhouse community. And it's already a low impact, low traveled road as it is. If I were bringing it to traffic impact analysis, it basically doesn't even register on DOT's graph.
There's no further discussion. We have they're asking for final approval. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, final approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All, we appreciate it.
Great job. Next is Loudon Drive.
The second item under old business is an application for preliminary approval for an 18-unit apartment development in 3 buildings on 0.95 acres. This was last before the board on April 20th for conceptual review. A tree removal permit and tree protection board approval are required. The 30-foot buffers are required on the north, south, and west property lines. The proposed plan shows 14 feet on the north, 10.5 on the south, and 20 feet on the west side. Buffers are supposed to be free and clear of any construction, including sidewalks. These reductions are within the board's authority to provide exceptions. So the board, if you choose that to approve that exception, that's within your purview. The neighborhood business zoning allows a 0 front setback. There's a 12-foot easement at the front property line. The buildings have been shifted forward to allow for the 30 feet on the back, but only a 20-foot buffer. Plan shows 32 total parking spaces. The applicant has removed 4 spaces from the original plan. 65% maximum lot coverage in neighborhood business. The plan shows that the lot coverage limit is not being exceeded. However, the plans now show the required 5% open space and 5% park space that's required by the ordinance. Compensatory storage will also be required for the fill that is proposed in the floodway as shown on the Dorchester County map. A landscape plan has been submitted as part of this review. Architecture includes a mix of materials, including a full brick first floor, niche panels, and board and batten siding with wood accents. Mechanicals are located on the roof and screened from view. Applicant is here and I can turn it over to them for questions unless the board has any for me.
Well, good evening. My name is Aaron E. from Architecture Plus. This is Kevin Wally. We've got the developers, Vitaly Mendescu and Mikola. So Vitaly and Mikola are Somerville residents. They plan to do some work here for in the future. They care about Somerville's vision and they're ready to integrate that into their work. Can we take a look at the drainage plan for the civil? Okay, so I think the previous meeting, one of the comments was that the civil was not providing enough drainage. The civil engineers come back and taking a look at that and provided a detention area below the parking. So I think that's taken care of. I think another comment was the landscaping was not really looking adhering to some of the requirements of Somerville. We go to the landscape plan. Okay, so we worked with the landscape architect and he's integrated in canopy trees per the ordinances and brought up the landscaping to provide more generous presentation to Loudon Street. We go to the site plan. I'm sorry, the architectural site plan. All right, so our site has a couple of unique conditions that we're contending with. There's a non-conforming site to the north and wetlands on the property to the south. The site plan represents our effort to consider those two situations while integrating in the intent of the Uniform Development Ordinance in the best interest of the residents of Somerville. We are asking for relief on 2 setbacks to contend with this and provide a more spread out open site plan in order to provide better green parks and open spaces as per the goal of the town. We believe that the site we're presenting meets the intent of the Uniform Development Ordinance better than if we were to adhere to the strict letter of the ordinance. So hypothetically, we could nestle all three buildings to the front of the site tightly together, fronting close to and spanning nearly the full length of Loudon Street. And we would adhere to the letter of the ordinance, but I don't think that would meet the intent, nor would I think it would be ideal for the town of Somerville for the project itself. Were we to do this, the project would present as a much larger, more imposing massing of buildings, providing far less discernible open green space as desired by the town. We believe the approach an approach like this would be heavy-handed, ignoring the town's goals, and would not be sympathetic to the public realm. We do not want to ignore the vision of Somerville. So the blue area on the site plan represents the buildable area of the site resulting from the setbacks. As presented, the coverage of the built elements, green parks, and open space is below the coverage requirements and total buildable area in blue. Arranging the buildings as we have, allowing for a much less imposing building massing facing outward that the public will experience across Loudon Street. All right, so the property to the north, the existing apartment buildings are physically encroaching into the project property. This is a non-conforming situation. We've opted to situate landscape tenant parking between the buildings on our site and the neighboring buildings. Parking area would feature generous landscaping and canopy trees as the town is seeking, and would provide a green buffered visual corridor from the public view between the building massings of the two properties. A reduction of this setback to the north of the site would allow this feature to be created. So we are also seeking a reduction of the setbacks along the southern property boundary. Essentially, we're shifting the cluster of buildings to the south. The neighboring property is wetlands. While it's conceivable that something could be built there at some point in the future, the size of the building will be restricted by the expense of construction on such property. Further, the Corps of Engineers would likely limit the allowable build considerably. As such, we anticipate the natural vegetative buffers expressed as the desired intent of the ordinance would be inherently be present on a site of this nature. We're asking for this buffer, we're therefore asking that the buffer along this boundary be relaxed so that we can further space out the built presence at the street in a more appropriate manner, closer resembling the town's vision. Our client shares the concern of the town of Somerville, and we've been working closely with the town planning officials to make the intent of the ordinance a reality for the benefit of the project and for the public experience of it. We hope the board sees our effort to provide for the town of Somerville's vision for a more natural planning approach and agrees with our efforts to accomplish that goal. We go to the floor plans. So we've got basically three identical floor plans. I'll just kind of go through the plan real quick. Each floor consists of 2 units and with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths per unit, which bookend a spine along the central axis featuring 2 stairs and a rising room. Please keep in mind the bed wall along the left side of the floor plan. So it's that long straight wall on the left side of the page. Notice the windows along this wall in the bedrooms and the bathrooms. We'll look closer at these when we get to the elevations. Just kind of keep those on. We go to A2.0. The buildings are designed to have 2 fronts. So they have 2 sides and 2 fronts. There is no rear. This front is designed to face, the front that you're looking at now is designed to face outward to the public. It's articulated aggressively with porches and bump outs, such that the scale of the elevations presented along the street path of travel viewed by Somerville residents is softened with features of a more pedestrian scale. The scale of the massing is further broken down with changes in material and colors. Darker colored porches and light colored center axis spine of board and batten are flanked by stucco volumes with connecting base of traditional brick at the ground level. We do 2.1, please. So this side elevation has been designed to accompany the public front elevation viewed along Loudon Street. So this would make a corner condition that would be viewed from Loudon. It's likewise broken up into physically by articulating the facade, providing varying materials and colors. This elevation and the previous marry up to one another. And we'll see more of that when we get to the model images. A2.2, please. Okay, so this is the front facing inward toward tenant parking. It's designed to be with less aggressive articulation with the intent to still present a handsome facade for the benefit of tenants. A2.3, please. Okay, so this was that long wall that I wanted you to make note of when we were looking at the full floor plan. This has been designed for the close distances between facing exterior walls of the buildings neighboring one another. We can take a look at that on the site plan in a second. These facades have a limited opening size of 15% per code requirements. These are the walls that I asked you, or the elevation is appointed with high clear story windows and at the unit bed walls and bathrooms to provide both light and privacy between the buildings facing across from one another, while adhering to code required walls here facing each other, and then right here. Buildings face each other. We go to the model images. All right. So perspective number one, this is a bird's eye view looking south along Loudon. You can see a strong articulation of the massing of the public facing elevations in this perspective. The variations of materials and colors further underscore the mass and articulation. Perspective number two provides the opposite bird's eye view looking along Loudon. Perspective number three shows the parking area softened with landscaping and green park area featuring 2 gazebos. Perspective number four is the pedestrian level along Loudon as experienced by Somerville residents. Note that the landscaping in these model images was done prior to the landscape architecture, so it does not accurately represent the more generous landscaping and canopy trees actually provided by the landscape architect. Nevertheless, the opportunity of softening the impact of the architecture on the street is there, and the articulation of the massings can be seen well. So we're not required to present materials tonight, but we just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what their direction is that we're thinking of. Yeah, some of these materials down here. So we'll be using some sort of antique brick with rough struck light colored grout lines at the base of the building. We're currently showing standing seam metal at the hip roofs, but our client will be changing it to an asphalt shingle. Currently, we're looking at CertainTeed's weathered wood. Painted areas of hardy board and batten will be Sherwin-Williams duck white. Darker elements such as the porches and trim will be iron ore. The materials for the vertical wood slat screening at the exterior of the stairs is still being discussed. With that, Kevin, do you have? With that, we'll take questions unless Kevin, you wanted to chime in.
And did we miss anything on any of the staff comments? Anything that wasn't addressed?
No, there's the last outstanding issue would be compensatory storage for the fill. Again, that's something that staff will review, see where they're at on that aspect of meeting the ordinance. If it does mandate that the site changes because the compensatory storage does need to be provided, they can come back. Our recommendation would be move forward. I mean, it is preliminary. They're requesting preliminary approval. They're not asking for final. So we can definitely continue moving forward if you're comfortable with what's being presented today. And address that as we continue to move through the process at the staff level, but that is a staff level concern more than anything, but it can affect the overall layout.
Thank you. And could you highlight the two, I think it was two variances?
Yeah, let's go to, which one's the easiest? So you can see here, it's the north and the south buffer. The buffer and the setback is equal to the buffer. So in the ordinance, the board has the authority to reduce that if they feel the intent of the ordinance is being met. You already have an encroachment on the north side from the adjacent property. So that's already encroaching into that buffer, and parking is kind of it's up to the board. The other side of the property is the south side. As the applicant pointed out, the property directly to the south is almost entirely wetland. And it's very unlikely in the future that that will get developed much, if any. So we were comfortable with the requested reductions also because they are meeting that 30-foot setback, the buildings at that, but they do have some disturbance within the 10 feet out of the 30-foot required. So we were comfortable with what's being proposed.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's address the site first. Are there any site concerns from the board?
Remind me again how many units these are?
18.
And you're providing how many parking spaces?
We've got 1.7 per unit.
31 and 32, we felt like it was important for clients that we get as much parking as we could. I mean, to make it viable. I think we got 32.
Ordinance requires 1 per unit.
1.6, 1.7 is pretty industry standard, so I don't have any issues with that.
I think the town minimum.
One,
Just one.
just one.
Right now, make it like park.
Okay.
I remove for parking. Right, for the last, what is the parking area? Make people come up.
Understood.
But then I remove two parking spaces, and what is the parking? Yeah, we removed a couple parking spaces for the tree, the canopy tree island, and we minimized the dumpster to be a single dumpster.
Understood.
Still has. Container.
Any other site concerns or questions?
We'll get the site lighted another time.
Like, yes, sir, just like the previous client said.
Yeah.
The civil things. Very substantial.
Right, I don't have any concerns. I don't have any concerns about the variances they're asking for. They seem very, very reasonable. So let's, there are no other site concerns. Can we talk about architecture a little bit? I think it's a pretty good effort, but I'd like to hear what others think.
Can you address the narrow windows above the bathrooms again? What size is that? It's hard to see.
So those are 1 by 6 or 1 by 4.8.
Those are in the bedrooms.
Right.
Right, not the bathroom.
Well, they're in the bedrooms on the bed walls above the bed and then above the showers. So that wall, they're buildings facing each other will have that wall against each other. There's about 10 feet between the building site. There and there.
That building will have this one on the bottom.
Right here and right here.
It went on another building.
On
also.
building 3.
Yeah, right there.
So we've got, we've got that limitation of 15% openings for code. We also thought that it helped with privacy, having those bedrooms and bathrooms facing one another. We still wanted to get some natural light and,
I like your perspective drawings. I think that represents your buildings much better than the architectural drawing too. And the only thing that I would say is I never liked that antique brick.
you don't.
No, I like brown and red brick, whatever.
Is that more typical? I see a lot.
Yeah, that's more.
Around here.
Well, it slipped in and I hate it because it slipped in. We let it go one time and since then, every time we turn around, it's going on somewhere.
Yeah, it was in a couple times. We're trying to pump the brakes on those now.
Okay.
So not kind of that painted white brick.
It doesn't need to all look like Parker's.
I'll tell you our thought process was, we're trying to integrate in some sort of natural tones and hopefully kind of bring the massing down a little bit and just have it.
I think your perspective drawing has a better color than the actual brick is. It's more of a darker color.
This sort of has a white frosting to it.
That's what I think I object to the white.
Same here.
During your conceptual presentation, you showed some mood boards showing some Somerville, Low Country, historic references. What references on this architecture alludes to that feeling?
Response to that preliminary concept, we took the gables off and softened them to the hips. Building, and also added the brick and the first belt line on the bill, try to tie it more to materials that are more present with some of them. And so I mean that's our connection to it. I think the blue boards that we had initially, we got a little feel from that. And when you brick, they stuck out the front ends of the buildings, the gables more like Charleston same. Clear that you saw Charleston, maybe you see some of that. So trying to follow a little bit more of the vernacular or something.
That's right. The multi-family typology, it doesn't necessarily marry well with or translate well to like a brick storefront in the downtown area or a white clapboard sided Low Country Somerville vernacular farm. So we were trying to just kind of hint to some of that sort of thing through materials and a little bit of massing and form.
Can you go back to that end elevation with the slot windows and what color is that massive wall?
So that would be a light colored stucco, lighter colored. And now those buildings would be facing each other and shouldn't be very on the street. We understand it's not a lot going on with that wall, and that's purposeful.
Tim, can you go back to, I think it's number 100, the aerial again?
Do you want these or just the elevation?
Yeah, because where the sign is on perspective number 4, that's going along Loudon Drive, correct?
That's right.
So that will, on that corner, those narrow windows are going to be visible.
They're viewable. I think they're kind of nice little accents in that wall, and we envision a big canopy tree right there, sort of soften the architecture a little bit.
Yeah, it isn't like they're across the whole building. It's just one element of it.
So on this elevation, it's dark, but you're thinking a lighter color? Or where those narrow windows are? I thought you said it was gonna be sort of a white
So
stucco.
those end volumes that you're looking at in perspective number 4 with the hip roofs, those would be stucco. And then what's a good image for that long white wall? So perspective number 2,
Yeah.
if you look between those two buildings. Yep, exactly. Or if you look to the top left building, yep, there you go. Now, if you go back to perspective number 4, between those two massings, we've got that hyphenated area with the long windows as well, painted dark. We wanted to stitch those things together and sort of pull that hyphen area back. We've got the dark color there as well. And that would be a Nietzsche hop panel system.
For me, I think the only thing that causes concern is the narrow windows there that we've been talking about. Besides that, I think the building looks pretty good. I don't know. I can't suggest a solution, but that is the one element that kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit.
And you're putting all the HVAC on the roof,
Correct.
nothing on the ground.
Let me note about the floor plans. The buildings. The units are about 1,000 square feet. There's like Aaron, there's really 2 fronts. There's front to the street, front to the parking area. Providing the porch area for each unit covered with providing a faux porch window wall that looks towards the view. And so you've got a lot of open areas adjacent to the kitchen and the dining, living, and then the bedroom walls and all that are really on a non-view side, but they still have a lot of windows. And, as Aaron said, I think the different windows has some articulation, demonstration, gives some interest, gives more credence to the large massing elements, which are major points of the building. We could look at them. There's room on each side. You can see by the layout of the floor plan, there's room. Bedside tables, maybe two flanking windows, which is kind of colloquial. But we were trying to do something a little. So that's what's pushing it over.
I think to kind of keep it moving, we could say, just consider restudying those narrow windows. Maybe they are appropriate in the bathrooms, but maybe they need to be restudied at in the bedrooms, and move on, and they can take a look at it and they can come back.
It's good.
All right.
That works.
Any other comments?
No.
Peter, anything else?
Nope.
Amy, good.
No, I mean, I think the buildings look good and the placement's good and variances at the top and the bottom are fine. And the windows are just, there's something we're not used to. That's the
Okay.
problem. Okay.
I think it's a good,
Fair.
otherwise it's a good use of kind of vernacular materials and a modern interpretation. I think is overall it's a great job. So.
Yep.
Good job.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
And you won on the site.
What's that?
You got the site.
Yeah, that was big.
That was good.
Okay, they're asking for preliminary approval. Sounds like it would be preliminary approval with conditions for the restudy. Would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion preliminary approval with comments.
Is there a
Comments.
second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good presentation.
Thanks.
All right. Next is Roper Medical Office Building. Tim, I'm going to recuse from this one. So Matt. you're up.
The third item under old business is a request for final approval of a proposed new 2-story, 43,254 square foot Roper Medical Office Building at Berlin G. Myers Parkway in 78. This was last before the board on March 16th, where it received preliminary approval. The plan is consistent with the approved design guidelines for the sawmill development. Staff's comments and concerns have been addressed with these revisions. Average foot candles exceed the permitted level of 3. This can easily be adjusted to meet the requirement. Preliminary architectural design is also consistent with the sawmill aesthetic. The proposed design aesthetic of the sawmill development has previously been approved by the DRB. Steel framing, corrugated metal wall panel, standing seam metal roof, and brick make up the primary finished materials of the exterior. A proposed blade sign at the corner of the building counts as wall signage. I think you guys were good with that at the last meeting, and the placement, a lot of square footage to be taken from both facades. Wall signage provided as requested does not exceed the permitted total. So everything generally conforms with zoning requirements as well as the previously approved sawmill design guidelines that were adopted. So this is really, if you have any other questions. Go.
Okay, take it away.
All right, my name is Chris Altman. I'm with SMH Architects. With respect to your time and agenda list, I was just really going to address the couple items we got from preliminary, but happy to answer any questions you have. The first question we had was to bring in some materials. This is the brick that we're proposing to use, so it is a light informal brick. Then a wall panel will be this profile, but it will be this color. This will be the profile of the building. The second item that was asked to look at was potentially adding some accent lighting to the building, and we're currently working with the lighting vendor to look at doing some very limited uplighting on the Berlin G. Myers side. So we're working through that now. The third item was to address look at the profile of the fascia on the eaves. You want to skip to the elevations. It was a good comment, and we looked at that and studied it and agreed, and increased those from approximately 9.5 inch depth of fascia to a 14.5 inch depth, which we felt like was more appropriate to the mass of the building, and that was originally what the comment was addressing, and you can see it in the detail in the upper left-hand corner that Tom just passed around. And then the last item that was asked to look at was to include a pedestrian connection to the walkway along Berlin G. Myers to our property. So if we could skip to the site plan. Yes, there you can see it's been added there. So we've included that change as well. Outside of that, the building elevations and scope has really not changed since we presented it preliminary. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any comments on site?
Like they did everything we talked about.
Yep. How about architecture?
What were your thoughts on the exterior building lighting on Berlin Myers? Did you have?
Go to that straight on elevation. I'm not sure which sheet it is. It's probably very difficult. See, we put some dash lines in there. We were thinking along the brick facade on the north elevation top one there, just to light those brick areas along there very subtly, but maybe do some uplighting along there. Working with the lighting vendor, going to do some rendering studies to understand exactly how that will look prior to selecting a final concept.
I like the screens.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other comments on architecture? Any further discussion? Okay, anybody care to make a motion?
I motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Much.
Welcome. The first item under new business is 316 North Magnolia Street, proposed repairs and updates to the front facade. This is a request for conceptual review. The property zone DMX downtown mixed use. It's currently a vacant house. Staff's comments are as follows. The plan is consistent with the design guidelines. The plan is modernizing the site for commercial use. The applicant wants to be low impact on the site with gravel parking and drive. The proposed design on the front facade is to maintain the residential look for this office. The exterior finish is to be hardy plank horizontal siding. A simulated garage door will be utilized to maintain the residential look, and some trees and shrubs will need to be removed to implement the plan. Tree removal permits have been obtained for the necessary tree removals. The applicant will need exceptions to section 8.5.2, which requires an 8-foot landscape border for driveways and parking on the side and the rear. So along here, along the side and along the back, when we look at the proposed site plan, they will need an exception to the 8-foot landscape border along those edges. I'm not sure which plan they're looking to do, because there was a minor fire marshal concern about the driveway width that we're working through those details. So I believe, being conceptual review, it will come back for at least another review before the board, and we can hopefully have that hammered out before it comes back and give you the final layout. But this is the conceptual layout with the requested 8-foot reductions to those borders.
You could just introduce your name.
Yep, my name is Skip Williams. I'm the property owner. We will be owner occupying the business. And that previous slide, this was the original one that we had submitted to the TRC. And that other slide, Tim, if you could go back, that one. That was basically I think the fire marshal was saying that if we didn't had a U-shaped driveway and that existing driveway is grandfathered in and just left it like that, we just parked on the grass back there, then it would be fine. So that's why we kind of redid that. That right there, but that Bradford pear, the tree permit has already been obtained and that tree been removed, so we just want to be able to, in that upper right hand or upper left hand corner where the clear bushes, just be able to have some parking spaces back there, because it has to be off street parking for the zoning. I guess the biggest thing is why we're here today is the front facade of the building. We want to make some changes too.
You see that, Tim?
And Tim, can you clarify, they're required to have off-street parking?
They're not. The property is zoned DMX, which is downtown mixed use.
Yeah.
There is not a specific parking requirement. The applicant indicated during TRC that they have a number of people who will be working in the office, and they wanted to provide adequate parking for the people who work in the office on a daily basis. I can allow the applicant to explain their needs for the parking, but the off-street parking shown here, it's not a specific requirement for us. If they're going to provide it, it needs to meet our minimum requirements for size, placement, and screening, but it's not a specific requirement to provide it offsite.
So you want to have the parking in the back, correct? You're not required.
Well, I mean, I don't know that, we just want to be able to provide 7 parking spaces for our staff that work there. Without parking on the street, because we've got 40 employees that would come by during the week to pick up time sheets and stuff like that. And they would come in and just park in the front and then leave. And we would have just parking in the back for the 7 employees.
Or the permanent kind of type. Yeah, they're most
They're
of
all
the day.
day.
Okay. I don't think it makes a difference to me. I just want to make sure you knew you did not have to provide
Okay,
by code the parking.
okay.
So can you tell me, are you doing?
We've abandoned that. We're just gonna, correct.
And can you clarify through the pictures, which building it is that you're changing? Are the pictures, do they represent one of your building?
Correct. Yeah, there's a photograph
Well,
of the
unclear.
actual building, which was,
Which-
it's what I've drawn for the existing right there. And if you look at the screen to the right, we think is a carport that was converted into interior space. And they put another door right there, back to back to the existing. And we'll need, on the left side, we'll need to build a wall where that big window is for an office. So our proposal is to take the main entrance and put it right, pretty much under the, even with the right, just like right there. And then have a window on each side. That way we'll be able to have an office wall inside there. And then that other window to the right that could be built to look more like a carriage house style garage door, even though it would just be 2 upper windows, because the interior would be a wall and non-operational. But we're also not opposed to taking the same 2 windows that are right there and putting a third one over there too, if that's meets the board's approval.
So you're taking the brick off, putting hardy plank.
Correct. So currently the front and the right side have brick. The left and the rear have vinyl siding.
Okay,
The vinyl siding definitely has to be replaced. The brick on the right side probably needs to be replaced because of the tabs and stuff that are attached to the rotten boards are no longer attached. And then because we're having to redo the windows, it just makes more sense to get rid of it. Plus there's, in some of the other photos, we looked around a couple of blocks and there's no brick buildings. It's all, either older siding or brand new buildings with hardy plank siding on it. So it's more conducive to that area.
Right. And just a reminder, they're asking for, this is a conceptual review.
conceptual.
So,
I think it's fine.
So you're planning on redoing all 4 elevations with the hardy board, right?
Correct.
And then you show an ADA parking space in the back. Is there an ADA entrance and
That-
access?
There's a rear entrance currently, but we'll pour the pad to that entrance so that it will be able to use the wheelchair to get in and access the building that way.
So is that section of this building at grade and everything else is elevated?
Correct.
So where's the handicap entrance of the rear? Is it at the elevation of the main building or the elevation of the side of what used to be a carport?
The entrance to the 88.
Yeah,
the
you got a ramp.
concrete slab.
Well, how do you get from there into the upper floor?
Well, that lower building or that lower section will have the break room, the 88 bathroom and 2 offices.
Yeah,
So in the event that if we were to hire somebody that were ADA needed to be, then that office and one of the 3 offices in there would actually be
okay.
their office.
So this is a single user business, right? It's
Correct.
not multiple businesses.
Correct. Yeah, we're a private duty home health agents. We have folks that go into people's home. So our businesses actually, or our services are provided in the folks' home. This is our office where we hire the caregivers, HR stuff and process billing and payroll and stuff like that.
Are you gutting the interior? Are you relaying out the entire floor plan?
Right. Got to make more.
So on the other 3 elevations that you're not showing, are there any windows that you think you have to add or eliminate or modify?
There will be.
Okay.
memory's inception.
Yep.
I mean,
Skip, you just, what this building is used for is staff. You don't have customers coming in.
Correct.
It's staff driven and you're setting it up for staff possibility.
Correct.
I don't really have any issues with it. In theory, it's fine. You
Yeah.
have to have. You know, you have to provide a lot more detail when you come back and all the elevations and all that, but
See each side.
conceptually. I don't see any issues with it.
Is this the, like, so at this point, we'll be able to obtain the building permit?
No, you'll probably have to hire an architect or a builder to show, to really draw the building elevations. There's certain town requirements that you'll have to meet. And they'll have to see those. So you have to come back to us at least once. And then once we give final approval, then you submit it to the town and they'll review your plans and ultimately they'll give you permission to proceed. And Tim can explain that a lot better.
3 months away.
What's that?
You could be 3 months away before you get a building permit, easy.
I've got 4 months before I get kicked out of the building that I'm in currently right now, so.
Want to make sure you understand when you come back, we need to see what each side. Not just.
I was under the impression that the reason why we needed to have the DRB approval is because we're changing more than 50% of the facade of the building. The other 3 sides, all I needed to do is get a building permit and we could proceed. What's that?
You're not changing.
Well, I mean, the bricks coming down for the hardy plank.
But you said it was vinyl siding.
Well, vinyl siding on left side and rear. Brick on front side and right.
You can clarify that with staff, but typically
Yeah,
this is at
do.
least a 3-month process.
See if there's any
You
way.
may have a way to expedite that, but typically that's what takes about that much.
Okay.
The rehearing process, it actually takes longer.
You maybe could get it next time.
There may be a way to talk to Tim and staff and they may be able to guide you to structure it a certain way where you can get through all the processes pretty quickly. But Tim could advise you better on that.
But he can come back next month and do preliminary and final.
Yeah.
Right.
Just, what is that?
Bring the drawings when you.
Next month, you can ask for preliminary and final approval,
Okay.
which is
They
what-
bring the drawings you need, as in the architectural drawings?
Well, the same drawings.
But the deadline on that is coming up pretty quickly, even though our meeting's a month from now.
Get something done in 30 days. 'Cause,
This-
yeah,
Tim might could help you with that.
Yeah, maybe Tim can suggest something.
And he can spell out the dates for you and all that, but it's not, you need something in 30 days. I think the next submittal application is probably like 10 or 15 days from now.
right.
So it comes up pretty quickly.
The submittal deadline for the next meeting is the 30th, which is, we're lucky because of the way that the calendar falls this month. DRB next month is on the 20th of July. So if you can make your application, I mean, really, the latest I could accept drawings would be July 10th.
Okay.
But I would focus on the building because if the site, if we're dealing with the fire marshal issue with the width and not being able to meet that and just maintaining the location, et cetera, it's the building that really, the drawings will need to be submitted for, and the building department would need proper drawings anyways to be able to get the permits regardless. So you're gonna need it anyways to be able to get through that building permit process as well.
I would say just go ahead and tell you, 4 months is very ambitious to get done what you'd have to get done. Not saying it's impossible, but I want you to hear that clearly. That's pretty ambitious.
Well, I mean,
It's not, we're not the hindrance. It's just this whole process you have to
Right.
go through.
our current landlord was terminating our lease, and so we found this place to buy, but it needed to be renovated, so. Okay. Right.
Right, there's no vote. So just thank you for the presentation. We wish you good luck.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Skip. All right. Next is 226 Black Oak Boulevard.
So the second item is a request for preliminary and final approval for proposed addition of mobile classrooms to the property located at 226 Black Oak Boulevard. This is the first meeting. The plan is consistent with the design guidelines, and the proposed mobile classroom is going back in a location that previously had one. It's pretty straightforward. Let's see here. If you go through the packet and what was provided, this is the proposed location, and you can see that it will not be very visible from either Black Oak or Gehagen Road there. And that they've provided that there were mobile classrooms at this location previously, actually two at one point. So it's very standard mobile classroom for this type of use. So the DRB is responsible for approving their location in this particular instance.
I'm Keen Seal with the Bastion Group, and I got volunteered by my wife to my daughter goes to Somerville Catholic. But other than what he said, pretty much is just a 2-classroom mobile unit. The enrollment has increased, probably outpaced DD2. I think over 50% since in the past 6 years. And then it's where some existed from 2005 to 2014, the best I could tell, using aerial from Google Earth. And just putting a 2-pack, mobile unit. And it's pretty, other than that, it's pretty clear, pretty simple.
Any comments from the board?
How long are you gonna use the buildings?
It's a school. So
Uh-huh.
I know the idea would be that I think they are trying to have some planning with the I'm not sure in the Catholic world, the diocese or whatever of picking up, of potentially expanding to the towards Gehagen for like a mobile high school, but that's kind of all in the works, I guess. So I think what they having to do now is to add a for 3rd grade or something.
There may or may not be a time limitation how long you can have those temporary buildings up.
Yeah, they have
But tell 'em, you
better
can
long
tell 'em.
plans, but I would be lying to you if they knew for certain, or
Okay.
I know even less certain than they do.
Do you know if
Lots of temporary classrooms now, still,
There are not any currently.
not any.
From what I could tell from Google Earth, 2 were there from 2005 to 2014, and then there were 2 additional units from between 06 and 07, but you sometimes skip a few years at a time.
And you're asking for 2 now.
Just the 2. Yep. I might be back in a year asking for 2 more, but it's for now.
And it's just
It's
one
one unit.
unit
double
with
wide
2
unit.
classrooms in each unit, in that single
23,
unit.
But 4 by 16.
Do you know if there's any opportunity to get more windows into the mobile to enliven sort of the interior with more daylight?
I have not been the point of contact really on ordering the.
Do you think you can
I'm not
ask?
Sure if they're custom or we can ask. I'm not sure if it's a custom thing or if they're normal. I think we have the floor plans.
Let's see if pictures.
Windows.
If you've seen any of Dorchester 2's properties, they all look like this, that this is what the mobile classrooms industry standard really are. I can't imagine that they get any additional windows,
You're not-
truthfully.
Well, one side is the doorway and other side's the windows. That's just the way they're built.
And then what we would, the plan is for access would be the far left, that would be kind of in line with the sidewalk. Across the left side of the Black Oak would be the ADA ramp, and the other three would be access by stairs.
And great suggestion. And just one other thing is, if this is behind the building, you really can't see it from the public
You're not
public
gonna
right away.
see it.
Any further discussion, or could we have a motion? A motion for approval?
I'll make a motion for preliminary and final approval.
Is there a second?
Second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much. Next is 1660 Old Trolley Road.
The next item on the agenda is a request for preliminary and final approval for the proposed rebuild of fire damaged buildings at Somerville Station, buildings C and J. This is the first meeting. The proposed buildings are to match what was damaged by the fire previously. So there's no proposed design changes.
I'm Sean Carlin, the architect. As he said, the buildings burned down. All that was left was the pads. The new buildings are going back in this, within the same footprint, the same exact locations. Almost exactly the same elevations, same materiality, same massing. The only biggest adjustment is there will be some ramping and stairs in order to accommodate grade with current ADA standards versus when they were built back in the, I think it was 80s. So that's the only adjustment in terms of any kind of site area or building elements and architectural design.
Colors and everything.
Colors are exactly the same, shutter locations, double hung windows.
Can you walk us through the architecture real quick? Tim will,
Sure.
this kind of big picture.
So which?
Is it one of, are these buildings that burned down in this picture?
I
Sorry.
think that photo was probably those two. They're and in an L, kind of adjacent to each other with parking.
The two on the right or in the middle?
I think it's the two on well, there's one on the right and then one straight ahead.
Okay,
So each building has two breezeways and it's clusters of 4 units. Well, 8 units, 4 on the ground floor, 4 on the second floor that have a breezeway that connects each of them. And then there's a middle and here's about that. So there's 16 units per building.
Are all those buildings burned down that we're looking at here?
This is previous to the fire.
I know it,
site.
but they're all gone now.
Yeah, they're gone. The only thing that was there was
Everything's
the
gone,
building pad.
all gone.
Yeah, it's all been removed off the site.
but it's not everything in this picture. It's just a couple of buildings.
Yeah, just 2 buildings.
Yeah, it's just buildings C and buildings J. So it's these 2 buildings right here.
Okay, so
Middle and front.
for you to look like buildings that exist
Exactly.
with what you're replacing.
Yes, sir.
So we have to talk.
Nothing.
Well, I disagree respectfully that I think we should view this as a new project, and I don't think that those buildings look good, the existing buildings. I think if, so this is the entire site, right? Or is there more to the right?
There's
It's
Okay.
big.
It's a large development.
very large development. There's a
Okay.
clubhouse kind of down to the left. It's
Huge.
pretty extensive.
Is that the green outline?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that.
So you can see, I'm confident it's these 2 buildings that were the ones that were affected by the fire.
And it's
And
on
there
a
are-
private road going through?
Private road.
Okay,
There are 8 other buildings remaining.
So the buildings in front, the buildings in back of these are remaining.
Correct. This is
This is
pretty much right in the
interior.
middle of the site, interior.
Building, placement buildings inside an existing envelope.
Okay.
An existing building.
well, that makes more sense.
I mean, if they were on the road or something or stamping out or It's not the majority of it they're replacing. They're just filling it back in.
Okay.
They'll look new.
Yeah.
That's good.
Do we need to go over materials and massing at all?
I don't think so.
Same color, same material, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And the only difference was you'd have to do the elevation a little different for
So,
ADA.
As you
slight-
kind of enter into the breezeway, instead of just being ramping up with grade at a slope that's not ADA pertinent, we have ramping to come up at a proper slope to meet ADA standards, and then stairs for non-ADA access.
Okay.
And that was in order to, because the parking is still intact, we kind of had to connect this building at the pad elevation with the parking, but meet current ADA standards.
Understood.
Okay.
My daughter managed this complex in 1997.
You know it well.
All right, and you're all comfortable with them just repeating the theme that they have?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the board? Asking for preliminary and final approval. Is there a motion?
Make a motion for preliminary and final approval for the project as presented at 1660 Old Trolley Road.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is 209 West 6 North Street.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is a request for preliminary, and they have asked for final. I left that off initially. It's a proposal to convert the garage to living space and add a second story. This is a mixed use, neighborhood mixed use district. The property is used as a single family home as well as the office for the business that's operated here. So like the photography studio a couple months ago, we do have to review the accessory structures that are on the property. I did receive updated drawings. So some of my comments here are out of date. The new set of drawings does show the building not exceeding the 20 feet, so it is within the code requirement. The information regarding the square footage of the primary building actually has now been filled in. I have a set of drawings that so the assessor's page for it didn't reflect all of the total square footage. So according to the calculations provided, the gross square footage of the primary building is larger than the information that I had. So they are they don't need the variance for the total square footage permitted for an accessory dwelling unit, which would be no more than 50% of the gross floor area of the primary building. So really what it boils down to is those comments previously provided no longer apply based on the information provided in this new set of drawings that I just got. It's really the design that would be in question. It would not need to go to BZA anymore. So if that clarifies. Mike Taylor's here and he can answer any further questions regarding that.
Yes, my name is Mike Taylor. I think Tim covered most of it there, but yeah, I'm here to present and answer any questions for this project. It's an existing garage out back. Looking to turn it into a guest house. It'll go from 1 story to 2-story. The brick around the bottom will remain, which matches the main structure. The siding that will be added for the 2nd story portion will match the front of the existing building and color. Roofing materials there's a mixture of shingles and some stand and seam going on the roof. The shingles are to match the existing roof, which is a brown. And the metal we've got proposed is a bronze. And one thing to point out too, the building sitting so far back on the back corner of the property, you can't see it from the front side or the back. So it's really not going to be visible. So, and yes, looking for the preliminary and final approval if we can get it.
So the use is a guest house for the primary residence. So it's the same family or the
Yes,
guest.
that's correct.
So it's not Airbnb or any kind of rental, any kind of public access needed back there.
Right.
How does this get for a
Yeah.
design review board? It's strictly residential.
Again,
Neighborhood mixed use.
The zoning and the use of the property, it's a mixed use zoning district and it's a mix of uses on the property. So accessory structures need to go to the design review board. If they wanted to build a shed, it would have to come here. That's one of the requirements.
This project,
No.
is there a
No
motion
objection.
for approval?
Make a motion, we approve.
For a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is 319 North Cedar Street. And Andy is recusing on this one.
Just for my clarification, that last item, we gave that final approval, right?
Yeah.
So he's not coming back.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a request for preliminary approval of a proposed renovation to the existing structure into a bank branch with drive-through at 319 North Cedar Street. Property is zoned DMX, downtown mixed use. Following comments are from staff. Banks with drive-throughs are permitted in the DMX zoning district. The perpendicular parking will be replaced with new 45-degree parking spaces in the right-of-way. On-street parking can be utilized to meet the parking needs of the property. New canopy over the drive-through teller lane and ATM will be added to the south side of the building. 4 additional parking spaces will be added to the southeast corner of the lots. Minimum landscaping is required and is being provided on the south property line. The east property line adjacent to Berlin-Myers Lumber Company has an existing drive that does not meet the landscape screening requirement. A photometric plan has been provided, but the average foot candle information has not been provided. It cannot exceed 3-foot candles in the parking area. The existing non-conforming sign structure will not be permitted to be put back into use. And based on the location of the front doors, a new ground sign will not be permitted. The applicant proposes to paint the existing brick and pin-mounted letter wall signage is proposed. A canopy will be added over the front porch on the north and west sides of the building. And this is the layout.
Good evening. I'm Kelsey Harper. I'm from the civil engineers working on this project. I'm also here with Rush and Judy Dixon for handling the architectural side, as well as some folks from Service First Bank, which is the end user for the project. Quick overview, Tim did a great job, but this will be proposed redevelopment of an existing structure located at the intersection of 3rd North and Cedar Street. From a civil site design standpoint, not too much is changing internal to the site. You'll see most of the development or proposed changes. Site layout is happening in that like parking drive aisle area on the southern half of the property. We're proposing a drive-through and a drive-through ATM. and also some internal parking, those 4 spaces on the bottom right side. We have done some preliminary coordination with DOT. They've given some feedback on the proposed driveway encroachment, so I'm happy to talk through that. A lot of the design interim to the site from the civil side was driven by that feedback. Specifically that DOT required a 2-way entrance on both sides. They wouldn't allow a 1-way. So, and that's quick overview, but if you have any questions.
Let's go over on this one. Let's go over architecture and then we'll regroup and start on the site.
Evening. My name is Rush Dixon with Rush Dixon Architects. I thought I'd start with the orientation of this building. The civil drawings are showing it 180 degrees, so I just want to make sure you understand you're looking at the building with the Cedar Street on the right and access from the bottom, and our floor plans follow suit as well. So you can see the elevations that we wanted to point out, not only just the building, but the surrounding buildings. So if you want to quickly flip through, we're just to the west of the Berlin G. Myers building. That's kind of the wood storage rack there. Some of the 1-story structures you can see across the street. Some other things maybe the next picture, you can see the existing building. These are just the 4 corners of the building. So the building we're renovating, we wanted to make a beautiful new building for Service First. These are some examples of some existing recently built, more contemporary banks. And what we're working with is it's a very simple box of a building. It's in mid-century, not a lot of detail, but we feel like we can work with that blank slate and create something and elevate it to the level of something like this. So next picture. These are just some other examples that you would see in Somerville. Some charming hand painted lettering on brick, painted brick on the bank you see on top, and some on the bottom. That I think we'd like to make a part of the building that we're renovating. So the approach we're taking with the building is, how do you make this building? It's very one-sided. It's got the short side on Cedar Street, and it's a kind of a duplex. It's a commercial duplex. One side's a little bit bigger than the other, but it doesn't have like this sense of welcoming. It doesn't have that sort of sense that we wanted to create to bring people to the building. We knew we had to address the corner per the ordinance, and we like this idea of borrowing just a simple idea of a wraparound porch and what that can do. Go to the next page. And also some other elements, including the porch, some of the shading elements we're going to want to see given the orientation of the building. Next slide. So this is my very bright diagram of what we're trying to pull off. The orange stripe at the bottom, that's kind of the existing sidewalk that we're working with. And we want to kind of keep that there to avoid any triggers for DOT. What we're trying to do is take a building that has original entrances on the right side, and we want to bring those people around and create a new entrance on the center line of the long face. So we're kind of completely rearranging the building. What you're seeing is in purple, those are covered outdoor spaces. You can see the wraparound porch on the corner. On the far side, you can see the covered area for the drive-through and the ATM. And on the back corner, it's already a covered space that we intend to make a nice amenity for the employees. The sun angle kind of came into play from rising in the east, setting in the west, and how that comes into the building and how we wanted to sort of screen that. To create that obvious new entrance, we wanted to create a vertical element and let the people who park up against the canopy at kind of that obvious pathway to this new front door. So that's what we wanted to create with the building. Next slide. And this is how the bank sort of lays out. The reason we wanted that entrance on this side is that we knew where the drive-through was going to be, and the best arrangement for this particular bank is to have the bank tellers be able to view the entrance, receive people, but also address customers at the drive-through. The next slide. So this starts to show how the wraparound porch can work, how the sun shading elements, those vertical sun shading elements can work, both when the sun's coming up on the east, our new wall, where we have the signage, that can do some shading for the entry door. The shading next to it kind of shields the new windows that we want to cut into the existing brick. And on the next slide, that's where you get that very low, annoying western sun that we wanted to shield. And we know this from our experience of building we had every afternoon. We had to plan our meetings in the morning so we could avoid the hot sun in the afternoon. So very important. So next slide. These are just the elevations that kind of depict everything we were just talking about. You can see the arrangement of the sign. If we can go to the next slide. And one more. Again, you can see the general arrangement here just in black and white, how some of the elements come together. Next slide. Here you can see the vertical element at the entry and how the porch, the shading porch and the short porch that receives you allows you to walk in. Next slide. The sign kind of became a design element for us. If you can go to the next slide real quick, you can kind of see that they're branding. The blue color is an important color, and the way they did their logo was intriguing to me. Kind of the void, the solid on the left and the void on the right. And can you start to use that to create part of the architecture? And it was kind of used to create the entrance to the architecture. If you scroll back up one sheet, you kind of reach that way. So it kind of really kind of holds everything together for us. So you'll also notice that we intend to paint the brick. We like a nice white color. Again, it harkens back to the clean aesthetic of the bank. And we think it elevates the building to a level of the other banks we showed you before as well. We understand that there are times when you may want to preserve the brick, and we understand that, and we fully support those positions. We do feel in this case, because we're cutting about a dozen new openings in this building, and that we're attaching more brick to the building and our vertical elements you see there, we are mimicking the same coping and cornice type to tie it in. But we feel like with all of these new openings, the cutting, the patching, and the tying in of the brick is the only way to really make this look like a cohesive, high-end bank building. The existing condition of the brick, and I have some images of it, it's got extensive staining at the very top. Where signage used to be, it's a very bleached out area. So there's lots of different types of colors on it right now. I'm not convinced that's just power washing the brick is going to get it back to an acceptable level of sameness. So it's really for those reasons and our desire to create this building as cohesive as we can, as if this mid-century building was always built this way. It could have looked like this in 1965, and it could look like it today. So that's been our approach to create this very cohesive, simple building.
Thank you, Rush. Tim, can you go to the existing building pictures, please? And thank you, Rush, for the explanation and justifications. So Russ, you're adding to picture 6. A little kind of a little
Yes.
tower element, is that right?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. My thoughts are, in this case, I mean, it makes sense a little bit. I'm still a little hesitant. It is, but they could, yeah, that's an example of not a good looking brick building. But what if the tower element was a more historic looking brick and that was not painted white? You know, Rush, what do you think about that? That way it'd still kind of look like that historic Somerville brick color that would be brought out, and maybe the rest of it's painted. Maybe it's not white, maybe it is, but what do you think that tower element, if it was a true brick, not painted, would that work?
Yeah, we played with that vertical element. We originally had it pulled away a little bit. We pushed it back into the building for a variety of reasons. But I think if we did that, it may want to be pulled out and not engage the building. And so really it looks like the opposite of what I was saying, which is it is a new element. And I think it could be successful. But we would need to make sure the pump.
Sure. Well, I would then just ask you to study that.
We will. Sure.
Any other? I've got a couple comments on site, but anything else on architecturally?
Are you asking preliminary approval or preliminary and final?
We're asking for preliminary.
Just preliminary.
And the colors represented in that presentation, it's just a simple dark bronze storefront. All the coping and the painted steel columns would be a dark bronze. The vertical screening elements, introducing a bit of a wood grain, and that may not be the color, but I just want to give you an idea of what we're thinking for those. The material for the vertical louvers. It would be more of just like a 2x4 tube, but that just happens to be one of the colors. One of those vertical louvers.
I like it.
Is it a requirement to salvage this brick? Or is that just a program decision that you want to keep this brick and patch? And I'm sure there's thousands of holes in this bridge from attachments, and you're gonna try to patch that to make it. And it's more cost effective to do that versus just tear it down.
This is a load bearing brick wall. Yeah, masonry and block, concrete block and brick. Okay. Makes sense because the back walls masonry, concrete block.
Yeah, there's a little mystery. The exterior wall.
But you will go through restoring, patching. I mean, everything that's required to salvage this old brick.
It is a lot of work. Like I said, we like the simple shoebox of a building, and I think we can turn it into something pretty great.
I just want to make sure that I don't think we're looking for this old distressed brick to make it like a painted distressed building.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It needs to look, I assume, like a brand new bank.
That's gonna take a lot of repair.
We'll pay attention to that, but that's.
But that's not the intent, right? To make it a distressed looking bank building.
No.
Okay.
I think it's better to paint the tower so that it looks like it's an original element rather than something that was added to it.
Should it be a same color or different color?
Same color as the building, just as they proposed.
I think the elevations are nice.
Yes.
I think if that looks like a brand new building, that's gonna be a nice asset.
I'll still ask you to study that tower element, and you may come back with it, and we studied it, and here's some examples, and we're going with the way. I'm fine with that. But I'd like you to study it and then just walk us through it. Okay. I've got a couple comments on site, anything on architecture?
Yeah, do you still feel like the vertical louvers are necessary for the functionality of the building?
I do. I think they are functional and I think it creates, if I can.
Because I think what you're going for is gonna obviously be much better than what's there, and it's an attractive building, and to me, it's distracting from the building.
Yeah, I think it just adds a lot of the texture, the color, the warmth it brings to that walking path. And that's also a shading mechanism. It kind of anchors that right side on the Cedar Street side. It kind of gives an opportunity for signage there, and that just becomes a nice moment to me as one of the bookends of the building. And it's a nice solid piece without being heavy. And
It improves the function of the canopy too.
I definitely think so. I think it would, without an element like that and the color, the texture, you lose a lot of the warmth of that we're trying to create. Because if those come down into landscape, I think with that, it almost becomes this trellis element. At least that's the idea on both of them. So. Trying to measure the ground.
Are you keeping the scuppers and the downspouts on the exterior of the building? Or you
For
getting,
now we are, we have a little, few things to work out there. How we come through there, because a lot of them come out right onto the canopy, and then how do we take water from there? So we'll need to figure that out.
And it is a single tenant building.
Yes, we're going from a 2-tenant to a single tenant.
are there any other service first banks in this area? Where,
Very smart building. It's been set.
This branch will actually be moved currently.
That's right, we are behind the command currently in this entire. Not a new bank, but here.
Let's move on to site and we can come back to architecture if we need to. If we could pull up any of the site plans. There's been a lot of discussion internally over the last few years of having this park or green space that runs down Cedar Street from County Services Building all the way through CPW to Town Square. I think one of the detractors from this development is the fact that it's surrounded by asphalt. They've added some landscape areas, but I would like to see the front angle parking on Cedar Street completely removed, and that be green space. And maybe we can start talking about how street trees are coming down, how this is going to be a little park space Because I think there's opportunities over time for people really to walk from town hall or town square, go to CPW, they've got a great public space there. Walk to this building that could have a little bit of inviting public space, and then walk to 78. So I would like to at least study removing the parking from, you know, the edge of pavement or the travel way to, you know, that existing sidewalk, if not even all the way up to the building. Especially since the main entrance is going to be off of West Third North Street. Side street.
This drawing shows the parking on West Third North angled the wrong direction too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to go back the other way, so you're not crossing traffic.
Understood. We are hoping to maintain as many parking spaces as possible.
But I agree with Chris on the front, on Cedar Street. Not for the same reasons.
Is there any way that you could provide maybe like a sketch or a visual of what you're envisioning as far as a sidewalk or greenway goes?
Take it all out. Take everything out from the front of the building to the travel way. That'd be the most extreme. Yeah, and the goal is to have green space along Cedar Street.
I would leave that sidewalk in with the canopy because you're gonna have to put some more parking back. And you do have parking back on the side parking on the south side. So I guess south side.
The right.
So you can
lower right.
walk through parking lot and walk down that sidewalk under the canopy and get to the front door. Cause you can't walk down the other driveway. You don't want people,
You gotta have a place to walk on.
you gotta have a place to walk around the building.
Sure.
You need that sidewalk on Cedar Street.
Maybe the sidewalk stays, but everything outside that sidewalk to the travel way goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on this architectural sketch, there was a tree at the end. Right in there. So it kind of, that's where the green space would end. And then maybe,
Well, that is a green space anyway now, currently. You see a faint line there, a
Okay.
radius right there.
Yeah.
It needs to be the green space.
and Bill, if you're gonna have a sidewalk, which is a great idea along the front, it probably needs, does it also need to be planned south?
Well, you need to get to it, yeah.
Yeah. So that interconnects with the,
That
rest of the
drive through
street.
parking area.
yeah,
Sorry, could you point out that area that you're talking about where it needs to connect?
Tim, can you point from the parking lot to the property line? For a sidewalk, south of the drive-through. Yeah, so sidewalk along the street.
I don't think you need one there.
Okay,
For us.
okay. So maybe just keep the existing sidewalk and that's it.
Just keep the sidewalk existing and then you can get to it from the asphalt.
Okay.
And you might maybe put some parallel parking spots in along your two-way drive at the rear, which would sacrifice a little buffer area, but that ain't gonna hurt much. And you take, 8 feet away, 9 feet away.
Yep, that works too.
Which you could replace those 1, 2, 3, 4 with 4 parallel spots on the south side of that two-way driveway by the drive-through.
We can definitely explore that. I don't know that we would have enough depth for that with the 8-foot buffer and then the 24-foot travel lane. And then I think it's 9 feet that we would
Might
need.
have to only have 4-foot buffer.
Yeah, we might be able to, with good reason, reduce the buffer.
Okay.
And really, it's better for projects like this to come conceptual first and not go straight to preliminary. So we can talk through these ideas and save you all time and the applicant time and money as well. So moving forward, I think I would recommend conceptual instead of straight to preliminary. It's not required, but it's highly recommended. And then I guess once this parking on West Third is change to the correct angle, there would be an end island between the parking space and the drive-through that would have could have a tree in it as well. I don't really think there's an opportunity on the drive-through side to provide landscaping along the foundation. To soften it.
Well, you never see it anyway. Nothing but buildings there, both sides.
That's right.
Any other discussion? Discussion on you all would like to have? Anything else you want to tell us?
I don't. Gosh.
Okay, so they're asking for preliminary approval. Sounds like there would be some conditions with that. Would someone like to make a motion?
There are a number of conditions.
Second,
Take a crack at it, Bill.
Make a motion for approval based on comment.
And I just want to make sure that, again, the exterior of this building looks like a brand new building.
any further discussion? Was there a second? There was a motion. So we need a second. Matt seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next is 602 Bacon's Bridge Road.
The sixth item under new business is a request for preliminary approval for a proposed new 7 Brew drive-through coffee store at 602 Bacon's Bridge. It's actually 604. The new Harris Teeter fuel station is 602. Property zone GB, this is the first meeting. The proposed drive-through coffee concept is proposed in lieu of the previously approved Starbucks. The proposed lot has been subdivided and the new structure will be on. The plan utilizes a similar layout to the previously approved layout for the Starbucks, with the drive-through lane running parallel to Bacon's Bridge and the entrance drive. This being a drive-through only concept, there are 2 lanes between the building and drive road. 8 parking spaces exceed the minimum requirement, with the applicant explaining it is for staff overlap and transition. Staff has suggested the implementation of a 3-foot knee wall to match the just installed screening wall for the Harris Teeter fuel station property to provide design continuity. The old Rite Aid sign should be removed from the site or repurposed if it meets the current zoning requirements. Additional landscape screening on the proposed garbage enclosure is required. A landscape screen should be planted in the island with the 2 parking spaces. In the previous plan made an effort to preserve an existing more mature and salvageable landscape materials on the property. This plan should utilize the same goals. Site lighting meets the lighting requirements. Sorry, I'll scroll to our current discussion. The building is a 530 square foot structure with an integrated walk-in cooler attached through a screen wall. There is an aluminum canopy to provide cover at the drive-through window. Based on the elevations provided, it appears that the proposed wall signage located on the side exceeds the permitted 5%. All signage on a building facade exceeding 4 square feet, including menu boards, contributes to the overall signage and will need to be accounted for in the calculation. The walk-in cooler door faces Bacon's Bridge side and is potentially visible from the right-of-way. The elevation shows a neon flex light on the canopy and arched roof element. This would need to be approved by the DRB. That is the end of my comments, and I can turn that over to the applicant at this time.
Good evening. I'm Craig Winnow. I'm with Site Design. We are the civil engineer, landscape architect, and the surveyor on this. Yeah, and I can address any questions y'all have. This is a a national product. It's like it's a franchise. It is small, drive-through only. We are modifying the building. This will be a stick-built structure instead of a modular unit, which they typically bring in. And it is having to match as part of going into this development, it has to match the color of the green. Their national colors are blue, like a regal blue. So they're gonna match the green, and they have to match the brick look material, and they're doing that with the material list that's within this package. We did go to TRC. We found out that the external cooler is not allowed to be external in this case. So what they've done is they're doing it has to be attached to the buildings. What they've done is they've attached to basically a wall, goes around, covers, I guess, two sides, and then of course is open for access to the door. And it is strictly a drive-through concept. There is no order board. There is no speaker board. It is a concept that they have where they come out to you with an iPad, they talk to you at the car, and then they order it, almost like a Chick-fil-A does now, when it gets really busy. So that's how they order. With it being a strictly only drive-through, they do overlap and shift changes. So what they shoot for is they try to get 8 parking spaces. And it's for when there's an overlap. And we do provide the 188 space for an employee. What you have here is we have the site plan. It's a dual drive-through concept. The striping that is shown is the chevron type striping. That is actually striped as shown on the plan. In a 24-foot separation, they do stripe the lane 1, lane 2. They stripe the not to enter. And then the colors that they use is that regal. That is the paint that they propose to use on the actually on the asphalt. The access points on this site are limited to internal, meaning we've got to match a pre-approved traffic impact analysis that was already done for the 2 parcels. So we are matching exactly where we've been told to meet. What's changed since we submitted this is Harris Teeter was still under construction when we did the survey. So we have since gone back and got the final survey. So what's happened is the drive-through doesn't, you pull into the drive-through, that large radius actually doesn't radius out that now because the Harris Teeter has a large radius. So that radius is a lot softened. It's softened, pulled back. And that's basically it. We do have a connection going out to the road. That was part of what was told to us in TRC. And we also are showing I believe they say it's 3 foot. But I thought it was taller than 3 foot, but I'm going to go verify, but we are showing that continuation of that screen wall. And that's shown by the dark bold line that runs along the frontage. At this time, I was able to get the majority of the information submitted, the site lighting and such, and the photometrics. What I did not get was the signage, and it's still not done. So we know the signs are too big, but that's basically what you're going to see. It will be scaled down per the ordinance.
Who's the colors?
Yeah. It's all, if they keep going, it's all. And then
Boy.
there is a type
There
of,
it is.
they are showing that regal blue. It's actually, and I actually have the swatches to go on one, but this is the actual color they're using. The color's correct, but it's blue sky, what the color that they have to use.
All right, is your architect present?
He's in New York.
Only 2-hour flight, direct flight from Charleston.
Breeze.
All right. Usually we present the architecture. I mean, y'all present the architecture, but I would say just to kind of get it started this looks very prototypical.
Yes.
This looks like they've built it many times all over the country.
Yes.
One of the purposes of the boards is to ensure that instead of the prototypical architecture being used, it has to look like it belongs to the Low Country, specifically Somerville.
Yep.
The Starbucks did a great job I believe, memory serves me correctly, on making some of those modifications,
Roof lines.
roof lines. To me, this architecture is a non-starter for me, particularly because of the roof lines and the massing, and it just looks like a big mess. I don't quite understand the cooler element. So, and we can jump into the details of all this, but to me, the architectures.
Yeah, we have built these, they have one that's done in Pawleys Island. They have one that's done in Hilton, or it's been approved already in Hilton Head. And those have changed per those have changed per the local requirement. So, but yeah, this is their, they want to present what they want to do first, and but yeah, I mean, the swoop is always an issue. That's why it's presented. And then the other issue is it's a LED light. It's not a neon, but it's a small bead that runs around the canopy. And then that's the other.
We'd have to see more details on that, but probably not.
Probably not.
And then the external cooler, in this case, it is external, screen back off. But that cooler is an integral part of, because there's really, the footprints for the actual footprint of the building is on here too. It does, you can see it's basically, there's no room for storage. So that's where the storage is kept.
Is that reflected on this drawing? On these elevations?
That's it right there.
The cooler's right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The cooler's screened off. So
I got you.
yeah, so what they typically do is set the cooler. The coolers, when they're prototypical, the cooler is set, just sitting there. In this case, during TRC, we couldn't do it, so we had to integrate it with the building. So what they've done is they basically have built the wall around the building. But the footprint is 4 sheets up, is what the footprint looks like, and it's just no public access. It's employees only.
On the roof lines and give us a little bit better look.
I think, yeah, and the cooler needs to look like it is part of the building, not just, well, we put a wall around it, so technically it is part of the building. And maybe it's more successful than I'm thinking, but it needs to look like it's one big building. It's not. Let's just put a wall around it.
I think it might be okay if we had roof lines that kind of carried our eye away from it. Instead, right now, that's all you see.
That's the
And
first thing you see when you
Hey,
come
I
into the
know.
parking lot.
That's all you see.
Like that.
Yeah, dress it up.
Certainly the
Detail around the windows too.
the
Brickwork.
exposed insulated doors would not be
Mhm.
allowed,
Right.
if that's what that is.
It's just the
That's the
silver.
cooler door.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cooler doors.
Well, you need to screen that. You'd have to screen
Or put a
that.
real door that goes into a little vestibule, then you get to the cooler door, so it looks like it's part of the building,
Well,
not just.
you can do that too, yeah. Do that.
And again, I would say, like I told the old applicant, the previous applicant, this is better if you come with conceptual. It just would have been a little bit easier for all parties. But could we look at the site plan real quick?
We got a landscape.
Yeah, landscape.
Yeah, and with conceptual, you don't need to provide all the information you provided either. Tim, can you point to where the cooler is on the site plan?
Right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the building, so it needs to look not just like the screen wall. And what's to the right of that in plain view?
This
That's
the
the,
building.
that's
where they serve out of.
That is, if you go to the site plan, it's a little bit cleaner. Keep going, 200. So basically, that is a canopy. It's just 2 wings that stick off the side. And it's for employees so they don't get wet as they're going back and forth.
Oh,
Okay.
And then the concrete walkways, they like to have about an 80-foot length of concrete as they're walking. They don't walk all the way down. They go about 80 feet and that's where they stop. And then they let more cars come up.
Right, so they cue them to the front if they're super busy, to the lower left. where the crosswalk is.
Queue 'em in.
No, they queue on the right. They come in where it says lane 1, lane 2.
Okay.
That's how they drive it.
Sure.
So during like when it's really busy, the both lanes will be open and then it's not, I've seen them put cones. They have a couple built in in Greenville.
Okay.
That's where they have a couple built, but the ones up there are prototype.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the ones down along, as we come closer to the coast, we're doing the majority of them in South Carolina. As we come towards the lower part of the state, they are, they're having to address them. Like this is not their prototype. It's somewhat their prototypical swoop and all that. That's their design.
Yeah.
What they look for. So.
Yeah, that's probably a non-starter.
Can we talk about the colors again? Tell me about the,
Okay, so the colors, and I actually have a sample they sent. This is the color. It has to match the red, that green has to match the Harris Teeter green that's out there.
the same as Harris Teeter Green to me. That's the problem I'm having. If it's that,
I don't think that's the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's saying it
So
would
where
match.
it is blue now would be the Harris Teeter.
Well,
Green.
that's not blue. It says sky blue is a really dark
Like a
blue.
Lowe's blue.
Yeah, that they use. The Harris Teeter, and I don't know if it's just the way the color looks, but
It's
it's
dark green.
Oh, yeah.
It's dark.
yeah.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure it's not that color that you're showing. Okay.
Any concerns with the site? I'm not wild about blue stripes going down the sidewalk.
Not either.
Oh, man, I love it.
Listen, it might keep somebody from having an accident though.
Purple and orange. Purple and orange would be better.
Oh dear.
Yeah, no garnet.
No garnet.
Yeah, the only one that's required by code is the blue for the ADA.
To divide the lanes.
The ADA spaces.
Oh, the ADA. Okay.
Yeah, and we do white, we have to do white.
Either yellow or white.
White, yeah,
Fine on
Yeah, just.
And double check the interconnectivity to the fuel
Yes.
station and across the street or whatever. I think we had some discussions about sidewalks going along the road, maybe. So,
They are showing a connection to the Bacon's Bridge sidewalk. It lines up, you can see the blue crosswalk that comes across the two lanes, cuts across, goes across the drive-through lane again, goes across. And that was very similar layout in, this is almost an exact copy of the Starbucks layout. Smaller building, about a third of the size, actually. They've added one drive-through lane. They didn't have dual lanes at the Starbucks, but generally speaking, this matches. The Starbucks pushed back really, really hard on the screen wall across the front, and you guys said, and didn't push back. It was my recommendation that we should have some continuity of that design across the front. I felt that that would be something that we can get that continuity into the site and provide some additional screening. But they do have those connections. I don't think that we can really cut a sidewalk into the site along the edge of that driveway if we already have one there mid-site.
fair enough.
It doesn't work. What they've got is that's what they should.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the landscape plan along the entry road from Trolley should probably match what's done across the street. Or at least look at it and see if it, I mean, it should, as you're driving down the street, it should, I would think, look the same on right and
Yeah,
left.
same material.
Correct.
Okay.
So just,
Get water.
We've already talked to the water department. The water line is across the main entrance. We've got to go pick it up there.
It's on the back of the block.
Yeah. Yes, no,
There's the main, water main comes in that.
yes, yes,
Between the gas station and the shopping center, on the shopping center side back there.
yes, right there, where
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to just about bore under the driveway. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
pain getting there.
yeah, because the water was there.
It's
Water's
there
already
now,
brought there, but it's being used.
It's being used,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
What do they need? What size service?
Just
they
the
need?
1 inch,
1 inch is all?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 inch. Little 1 inch meter, 1 inch service shaft.
Is this 24 hours?
No.
I think the landscape plan looks pretty light from just a massing standpoint without dialing down into it, but it does look light. There's some existing planting along the intersection that could be saved. I don't think it's necessarily required to be saved, and Tim spoke about that in his comments. But I like the fact that there's a hedge, but if you look around the foundation of the building or in the end islands or around the dumpster, this looks like it's lacking a fair amount of landscaping. I would expect to see more than what is in there. And make sure it's material that does well in Somerville and it is cohesive with the rest of the center. It's a decent job. And then Tim also mentioned, yeah, you cannot reuse that existing sign on the corner.
We cannot, or I thought we could use.
As long as it meets the zoning requirements as far as placement, height,
Okay.
et cetera. So
It's, yeah, it's a monument sign.
You ought to be able to use
Yeah, yeah, they are proposing to reuse. They just have it.
we just need to make sure it meets the requirements.
Fair enough. Any other comments? Okay, they're asking for. Do you have any other questions or comments before we make a motion? They're asking for preliminary approval. They have a lot. I would recommend denial, but it's up to y'all.
I motion that we not approve this conceptual design based
Preliminary.
upon preliminary design, based upon all the comments that we had.
Site pretty good building now.
So bring the building back. Basically, the site looks good. We'll beef up the landscaping. Take out the blue.
You'll have to
And
bring,
then-
you'll have to bring the site back too, but.
Yeah, we'll bring the site back, but it's mainly the building that needs to be.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the massing of the site is fine. So we had a.
Second that.
But now with that denial, I mean, we don't have to, is it a thing where if you deny this, we don't have to wait a certain amount of time? We can come back.
Yeah, it won't affect your timeline by any means. It just telling you to keep working on it, keep working on the design, because you're not going to come back with the same exact proposal.
But I would-
That's the distinction.
And I would highly recommend the architect come.
Okay. And if they, I mean, do you all do online or does it?
We
you all
can,
do a-
We
okay.
can.
it's up to you.
Okay, all right.
All right, let's vote on that. So
Who gave the second?
Bill made the second
Bill, thank you.
for denial. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so
Okay,
much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Seventh item on the agenda is a proposal for conceptual review of a proposed redevelopment of the property located at 1306 North Main Street for a new Fifth Third Bank with a remote drive-through. Property is zone GB, general business. This is the old Mellow Mushroom property. The applicant has actually, we're working on subdividing this property, splitting it into two parcels. The first, I'm sorry, the parcel located closest to Main Street is proposed for the bank branch. It's a 1,900 square foot branch. It's set back from North Main Street approximately 20 feet. Being a conceptual review, there's no landscape plan, lighting plan, or the other required plans have been submitted. Required parking is 4 spaces. Parking provided is 13. Exterior finishes include metal panels, brick and hardy plank lap siding, aluminum prefab awnings are proposed for the facade. Elevations of the proposed remote drive-through have not been provided.
That's one question I did have. We had provided a share file that had renderings in it. They aren't in the package.
This is what was uploaded. If I got it, I apologize. I had a really big agenda.
Have them on a form we can show you all around. I don't know if that's kosher or not at conceptual level, but I think they're important to see besides the 2D renderings. Okay. I'm Greg Waldem. I'm BDG architect. Diogo with Infinity Engineering is our civil engineer on the project. And we're here representing Fifth Third Bank. The lot split, everything for Fifth Third Bank lot on it is being done by the developer, the outside developer. Fifth Third is leasing this parcel. So we're not representing anything for the lot split, just really the conceptual of the bank branch itself. Okay, so the Fifth Third Bank, actually, David, I'll let you speak for a second. For the site itself, if you can pull up that site plan, please. So, Mark?
Well, that podium microphone is terrible. So
Okay,
just
I'll speak louder.
speak louder.
Okay.
But is this the site plan that you want?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so as mentioned, it's a 1,900 square foot Fifth Third Bank. We have the pedestrian connections off to the front and to the side. You know, those mentioned a lot for this area. And it was mentioned by Tim that we do have more than the required parking. And this is just something that the bank usually requests to have. We do have the required accessible parking. And I believe for this branch, we also have the EV charging.
So Fifth Third Bank does do infrastructure front and up front for EV charging down the road. Putting it in right now, the work we're going through. So across the entire footprint, the access out connecting to that new pedestrian sidewalk going along the curb. That is accessible. And then in terms of that sidewalk, there was some discussion back and forth on where the best placement of that sidewalk is. We've aligned it similar to the Chase Bank across the street. So that's what we're doing there. Overall, high level of the site layout, items noted, we really worked to push that building up the corner, get street frontage. Not as evident in the elevation, but certainly evident for kind of brings the renderings around to you. The side standard style on the third thing, we oriented that to be closest to the accessible parking, get the entrance closest to the accessible parking. We address that corner like a blue box. That's all glazing. There's a lot of visibility, a lot of storefront visibility into the brand. And we really want that to feel like front porch condition, both to Azalea and to Main Street. So we've got 7-foot deep overhangs there, a lot of cover at entry. And then when we get into those elevations, well, actually, the Fifth Third standard, they do have a brick water table on the standard prototype. And then above that, at the entry, it's their signature blue and green wings of the talent. We've eliminated this all together on the prototype, but gone with more traditional vernacular materials, a lap siding and a brick that we find to be in tune with what we're seeing here in the surroundings. This is one of the
Tell us, there's kind of a porch element.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
and that's
we've got
here
the
and here.
overhang there along Main and as it wraps to.
And as it wraps into the center.
Correct. It's deeper along Main, and then it continues that depth as you first wrap at the corner. And then at the tower, because of the depth of the vestibule, then that drops to about 4.5 feet.
So the main one is 6 feet, maybe
The main one is 7.2 inches.
7'2" and then drops off. Okay.
Sorry.
It's better on the board than here.
You provide context photos for the bank across the street?
Context photos for the chase across the street.
Yes.
I
think it's-
I think it just have, yeah, those are
Yeah.
right there in the lower right. So the Chase Bank across the street does have ACM panels, does have the dark bronze, they've gone with a niche cladding, whereas we're using the shiplap, more of a cement board shiplap cladding. Versus the natural wood. We wanted to do something similar in tone with the texture, shiplap texture of the cladding, but we didn't want it to go beyond what the Chase was.
Sure. Yeah. First reaction is seems like there's a lot of different colors going on, and maybe it's more clear on the 3D. It's hard to tell on the flat images. So and maybe I need to look on your phone again, if you don't mind, but seems like a lot of colors, seems like it's thank you. Seems like it's really low, a low building, not a
Yeah, how does it
Height to
compare in
it?
height to the bank across?
It's similar height to the bank across the street. The bank across the street is, I believe in Chase it's 20 feet, we're at 18.
well, I know this building sits in a hole.
I'm sorry, the other speak to the grading.
To my knowledge, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what the existing grades are on this
I think
project.
it's about 4 or 5 feet lower than the street, whereas the Chase is
It's
really at grade.
At grade.
There's a fair, for the low country, that's a lot of grade change. So I think the building just seems, and I could be wrong, I fully admit it could be wrong, but it seems like it's squattier than it should be.
I wonder if some of that's just got to do with the detailing of that, the way the mellow mushroom is, it's kind of dark. I drove around today, I don't recall it feeling like it was that much of a hole.
Yeah.
But I can also assure you that Fifth Third would want to pop it up and not be in a hole also.
Well, yeah, you want it to be in context.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that much of a.
I don't think it's a whole, I just think the building design draws your eye that way, you know?
I'll swing by there again today on the way back, but I know I was across the street. It's actually significantly higher than the other side. I'd wonder what the distance is.
You want to point out, chapter 4 does dictate, I think it's chapter 4, that in GB zoning, single-story buildings should be minimum 20 feet tall. So, I mean, the board can provide an exception, but
We were really trying to keep the linear element.
You wanted to-
But we could certainly look at getting some high values.
Well, I like, Tim, can you scroll up slightly so we can see the lower elevation?
I zoomed in so I could read
Okay.
the.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah, to me, the side elevations are more successful than the front because of the presence of brick. I know in the Chase across the way, we kind of had this brick box. Then they had these other elements that came out of it. It doesn't read as much of a brick box on this one. So I think the front elevation or the 17A elevation maybe the lap siding needs to go away or something to, I mean, and I'm not an architect fully admittedly, but something bothers me about the front more than it does the sides. I can't quite put my finger on it, but maybe that whole front needs to be brick with the sides that are in color. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I don't like any of it.
Well, I didn't like the colors at all until I saw it on the board, and then the board made, well, I think that it hides that green a bit,
For me, it's really hard to rally behind this.
the colors.
Well, not the colors, but the massing too. It just all seems off. I just can't give you concrete.
Just the front,
The whole thing.
whole thing.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
more leaning towards Bill, really.
Bill.
Yeah, it's just. And Peter, what do you think?
I'm still digesting it. I'm still digesting it. The wings are a very prominent piece of architecture. And it downplays the shiplap siding that you tried to do, which is more low country and appreciate it. So I think the wings, I don't know if you looked at something different.
Well, the standard Fifth Third, you know, it's good you picked up on it. I think in working with Fifth Third Design internal and trying to get more of the street frontage, we popped everything up and gave it more of the wing. The standard elevation would actually is you're looking at the top elevation there, as the entry comes in, that drops, as you get to the right of the wing, drops down and that corner wraps without a wing. And introducing that porch condition, trying to enhance that, make that feel like more of a frontage, while the entrance is really more towards the back and the parking. That's where that came out of, but we could certainly go back to this third design.
Is that rendering of this building?
It is, yes.
One thing Chase did that was very successful was they said, okay, here's precedents of what we've analyzed around Somerville, what we saw in Charleston, this low country theme. And they said, okay, we've got this element from this building over here. We have this element from this building over here. And they really did a great job of analyzing and providing precedents and saying, this is how we reused that element. And I would encourage you to go back to Fifth Third and say, look, we really need to analyze Somerville and or the low country, Charleston, and really kind of dial this in, because they were able to and y'all are doing a great job, so don't take it the wrong way, but they were able to very easily make a logical justification for why they were doing what they were doing. And at the end of the day, it was kind of easy to approve it. This is a lot more challenging. And maybe it's too many different materials. That's what's throwing it off as well. Maybe it needs to be much more simple. I don't think any of us are opposed to this mid-century modern theme we're starting to see through here, but yeah, for me, this is a tough one. First, the site, I think the site's the site, really. I think he did a good job on that. I really am concerned about the placement of the parking, the sidewalk as it goes through Azalea Square. Right on the road, there's a lot of traffic that goes through there. That may be where it has to go. Maybe it needs to go on the back of the parking, so you can walk from the parking lot down the sidewalk.
And we discussed that in the pre-app too. That really kind of came out of the pre-app and really mirroring what Chase did across the street, you know, pushing out to the curb. That's what they did over there. But the other concern was, you know, if we pull it back and we get 2 feet, and is that a dead zone? And then the other, if we pull it back and it's overhanging the cars. So we were trying to get that separation of cars without creating a dead zone, but we certainly could pull it back.
It might be worth having that little strip there, because I'm telling you, it's surprising amount of people walk through Azalea Square, and it's really not a comfortable experience. So if you're right on the street, it's even worse. Mellow Mushroom ended up putting a little barrier there, which was not really successful visually. So I think I would prefer a 2-foot strip rather than having it right on the, yeah. What, anything else from?
So just to understand again, some of the design, if I were standing at the corner of Main Street and Azalea Square, looking at the wings and W, that's all opaque.
Freestanding at the corner of Main and Azalea. No, that's all glass. That's all sort.
So it's all glass
So it's glass
and,
it's
and
glass
only
on
the wings
perimeter
are
as well,
opaque.
yes. So really when we got into the Fifth Third as a prototype, getting that very retail experience and a lot of glazing, it's, if they wanted something different, doesn't feel like a bank. One of their favorite comments is this doesn't feel like a bank when you get it. It's the outside, there's a lot of unique lighting, kind of lighting over the transaction bar, feature lighting over the tech areas. If you look in, you can see they do events after hours, community events where they can project on their screen at the wall. All that stuff gives you some visibility and some light into the bank, and some light even after the folks. So that jewel box that kind of jump on horizons is what they're going for across the footprint. But then I said add to it is, you know, come in and they see it and they've had very, very few holdups in this new prototype because people come in and they're exposed and everyone can see the things of this fortress. And so they really want to be open to surroundings. It's like obviously there's areas like restrooms and cash rooms, they can't do that, but that's one of the key drivers of this prototype. We do want to try to maintain that because it's been very successful appearance wise in every community we put it in. Obviously, you know, and day one, we didn't want to come in and just put the straight prototype, but we did go back and look at precedent and actually study what some of the things that Chase did. I think we may have just missed it on the amount of green. We can look at that ACL definitely and get some hierarchy. As I look at it now, I think we get some more hierarchy to that corner.
I'm not saying a tower. Don't ever read that into, we need another tower on the corner. But I think it, especially given the importance of this corner, this is one of your first impressions in Somerville. It's got to be a home run architecturally. I think it's going to be more, I think it's going to be more of a restudy than than we may be saying, but I think it's got to be pretty significant and it needs to look like a low country building. It can be a mid-century modern interpretation, but it's got to be a great building. And I think you can do that by studying some of those precedents. All right, they're asking for conceptual or any other,
No voting, just
no voting, no
ideas.
voting for this, yeah. You have any other comments or need any guidance on anything else?
Yeah, actually,
Sure.
on the upload itself, I know the permitting teams have to build the upload. Does it have to be individual sheets that get some of a PDF package that we know is ready to go? I don't know.
Your best outcome, if you're dealing directly with the portal, is individual sheets. And what I end up doing is I end up taking each individual sheet and I try to put it into numerical order. If, however, you have a specific flow that you want to go through on the next meeting, just shoot me an email with that information. Either give me the sheet order or send me just a packet and I can just throw it in.
User friendly as possible. I know I had a couple of hiccups there.
Yeah, and
So what I'll do is give you low res, not a big file size, a cartoon layout, and then just.
yeah, 11 by 17 sheet size. This way when we scroll through, everything is the same size and I'm not having to adjust my zoom. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Just Andy will recuse herself for 201 Miles Jameson.
All right, number 8 under new business is a request for preliminary and final approval for the rebuild of a fire damaged Archway Academy Child Care Center at 201 Miles Jameson Road. Property is zoned NB Neighborhood Business. The proposed plan is to rebuild on the site utilizing the existing parking and other site facilities. This is a proposed new 5,300 square foot pre-engineered building, brick, Hardy siding, galvalume metal roof, and ephes at the corner. Proposed colors are provided within the packet. So this is a neighborhood level childcare facility. Again, as I said, 11 by 17, so I don't have to zoom in and out. This is the existing facility. I believe demolition's already been done. And there we go. So
Getting ready. So when, this is Tammy Nix, and she's the owner of Archway. So when the facility burnt down, it put all these children with no place to go. So when we met out, originally, and we was trying to scope through what we can do and how we can do it, knowing we got to get back new and everything. So what we did was had a meeting here with Bonnie with engineering, Tim and Jesse for planning and zoning, and Rebecca and Don from building, just so we could go through, not design at that time, but we talked to Bonnie to make sure we were good on the site and what we needed for resubmission with that. We talked to Tim and Jesse to make sure we were good with everything we had in that fashion. And then of course with the building department, knowing everything we need to get back new. And then we sat down since then and gone through, being that the building was basically collapsed. When we had to go through a alternative type demolition where everything was presumed to be friable. So, because they couldn't get in there and test it. So they basically handled it that way, which we're finishing up now, getting that out of the way. So we're trying to get everything to move it as quickly as we can to get the children back. And so when we sat down to try to work this thing through, we felt like that we put together a nice looking building. We got some constraints on site sizes and things like that. And Nancy will talk about the building, but that's how we got where we're at. And we're trying to help Tammy and the rest of Archway to get them back in business as soon as we can. And, any consideration, even if we got to change something, is we're hoping we got something good. So thank you.
Let me just sign in here. I'm only the third person signing here.
I don't think anybody signed in today.
But you get stuck with me for the last two.
All the previous projects.
Hi, you guys. Good afternoon. Good to see you again for my third trip, I think, up here this year. Like Edward had mentioned, Archway Academy has been there for quite a while, and they have other locations, and their place burnt down. And again, Tammy Nix is owner of Archway Academy, and John Michael is a regional manager with Archway Academy, and they're here with us today too. So Tim, if you could take us to the next slide. So the building there, the footprint basically is going to remain the same. It is going to be extended a few feet in the back, but the footprint will remain the same. Outside of that, we wanted a, low country feel, a pleasant place for the children. It was kind of a red brick. It had always been a child care center, but it has been an older model type building. This one will be taller and a little bit more presence and a cheerful look for the children. I do have samples of the brick. We have a brick ledge and brick columns on the front entrance. We have the brick ledge on the front and the two sides. We have a hardy board on the front and the two sides. And in the front, we also have an ephes right there at the front entrance. We have the archway brackets up at the top, both that sit right below the overhang there. And the overhang, I believe, is 24 inch overhangs on the side and the front. So we also have samples of break metal color board. And I'll explain the color. So the colors that we chose, Tammy and her crew really like the look of the Jackson Davenport building, the real pretty one on Old Trolley Road. We are going for that type look. But when we went up next to that building, we just can't find the perfect blue. And so we want just something subtle. So hence the multiple blues there. But 3 or 4 of them are what we're favoring. And of course, we would like to sample it. But we just want a soft, nice, bright blue. And we think that newer brake metal color that's been real popular will soften it, but not be the black or the bronze that are on a lot of projects. So, which we also like too. The paneled shutters will be paneled and the same color as the brake metal. And of course, the brake metal is going to be trimmed in an extra white. And the lights, we want to go with that lantern style. I just happened to find one, but we want a very similar lantern style. So if you go to the sides, oh, and the roof is a galvalume, which is also on the sample board. So the brick is Stone Mountain, which is the sample you have in front of you. And again, that's why I showed 2 blues, because we just can't find that perfect blue. And we've all discussed, you know, you have a sample in your hand, a sample outside, and a sample that shows up on the screen, and they all just look so different. But we are looking for a nice, soft, calm blue.
You're going to choose one of the blues or use all?
It'll all be the same.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just these colors are actually in your hands and they look like a soft gray blue. They don't even look like they do online. So it's a difficult process when you're looking at a piece of paper, going out in the sun, LED lights, Sherwin-Williams. It just looks so different. But we are looking kind of towards that Jackson Davenport ocean blue soft color. And nothing else really changes on the property. Their playground remains on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, of course, emergency exits for the classrooms. They do have a playground that's in the back. Tim, I think you have a site plan that might be on there.
Yeah, I didn't get the updated version.
Okay. Tim had asked me to add a site plan to it. So, but if you show that Google at the bottom, maybe that'll show it.
It's not zoomed in far enough.
Okay. But again, the building's going to be on the same footprint, give or take a few feet off the back. The parking lot remains the same. We have the entrance to the building, although it's a little bit more in the front rather than that corner angle like it was on that one picture Tim just showed. So it's going to remain the same. Parking stays the same. What we are going to do with the landscaping in the front, a lot of it had to come down. A lot of it got burnt up in the fire. And then when the demo happened, all that had to be removed. And like Edward said, it had to be a open, friable abatement process. So it kind of took out that landscaping, but we'll put all that back, nice shrubbery and colorful throughout the year landscaping. But as we mentioned, they have now been without a child care center in that area. There are a lot of displaced children. We are on the fast track to try and move this along as fast as we can. We haven't gotten the drawing started, but as you see, we already have the elevations, the sides. I'm not sure if we've shown the sides. Yeah. So that's just a side view with the blue, the galvalume on the top. Again, it would all be the same blue. And that brick would be on the same too.
All right, thank you. Are there any concerns or issues or ones someone needs to discuss?
I think the building looks pretty good.
I think it looks great.
Gonna be a nice replacement.
Come on. Looks great. I think y'all think y'all did a great job. I think it's clear that y'all have been here many times, 3 times this year, at least twice this year. I think it looks low country, it looks colors. I mean, Jackson Davenport building was good. So, yeah, that was a terrible building. So, Peter, did you have any questions or concerns?
Was there a sign elevation or is there signage on the building?
Well,
Oh, right there.
actually, to be honest, we haven't really talked to Tammy about that. We did this just for a visual for today, but that is their actual logo. There is a sign on the property. It's kind of sits, and if you're looking at the property, it's in the front right corner up by the street. And it's still there. It was not affected by the fire in any way, so it is still there. We put the numbers on it just because it will have to be posted somewhere, but. Yeah. Well, the existing sign is on there,
And that'll come back. Can happen later.
That's another permit.
Yeah, same with the signs here. Can happen later, so. Any concerns?
Looks great.
All right, is there a motion for final approval? Sorry.
I'll make a motion for final approval if that's okay with you.
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, there you go. Thanks so much. I'll get to work.
I got applause.
That's why I'm always.
Is that why? Is that your goal? I see how it is. So item number 9 on the agenda, last item to be discussed is a request for preliminary and final approval for proposed facade improvements for the Low Country Public House at 1426 Central Avenue. Property is zoned UCMX, which is Urban Corridor Mixed Use, following our staff's comments. The proposed plan is to update the exterior facade for a new restaurant. Parking was added to the site when it first converted from a residence to a commercial use, so the site isn't changing. Cedar siding will be added and the existing block will be painted. A full view overhead door will be installed in the garage seating area. A gabled roof canopy will be added over the existing courtyard area. At least that's how I read the plans. Okay. A new walk-in cooler is proposed on the side of the building behind a new fence. Painted signage on the front facade will need a separate permit, and signage cannot exceed 10% of the building facade. Dimensions will need to be verified. So existing, proposed. The only thing that's missing from this view is the proposed canopy over the courtyard area back here, which is shown here.
So if we can keep that to the end and start with the siding, that would be great. So this, of course, is going to be the Low Country Public House, and it was Ledger's Barbecue. It's right down the street, in between the fire station and the Publix on Central, and next to Lux, which is a coffee shop and wine bar. So this is going to be like pub food, and I don't know if you guys know, but the owner is also the owner of Fish Camp. So who also lives on that street. So he's just going to take his golf cart here. So he wants to make a warm cedar lodge feel to this building. So what we have proposed is this siding. It's already a block-in and it's painted, and I have the color of that paint actually here so you can see that. So this is the type of siding that's going to be put up, fairly lightweight. But it's got a lot of movement and a lot of texture. So this is the type of siding that we're gonna put up on the block wall. As you see on the front, in the back, I'm gonna call that the courtyard. And then in the front again, around that side, back to the front on the right, and then around the side to the fence. The fence is existing. It's a 6-foot wood fence. And the fence you see in the front, if you do want to flip to the original, just no, go up, back, and back, right there. All right, so this is the place what it looks like right now. The only thing that's been removed is the sign that the other place had. So this is what it looks like. I took the picnic bench out of the picture, so if the green looks kind of funny, that's why. So the next picture shows the cedar location. Oop. All right. So inside the courtyard, they want to do a color to kind of match and complement the cedar. So I have 2 of them here. Again, this is not the material, but I give you the idea of the color of the cedar that we're in. Our attention to this color. With this color inside courtyard. And then this color over here, which is the skyline. So Tim, if you go down another slide. So this is again real, except I put maybe a landscape or 2 there, but that fence is here. So this is another issue, but before I talk about it, if you see the chimney and the chimney side, that's painted. The front with the large window, that's cedar. That short side between the 2 windows is also cedar. The front is also going to be cedar, and the side all the way to the back fence is going to be cedar. So I think in the next picture, we don't have the cedar shown, but the darker is where the cedar is going to go and the lighter is the painted. So just to let you know, that whole area is going to be cedar. They also need a cooler. So they need this walk-in cooler. It's 8 foot 6 inches high, and it's going to sit behind the existing privacy fence, which is 6 foot. So the cooler, we want to put a black trim around it, whether it's going to be painted or it's going to have black wood around it. We think it's such a high hill that 6 foot fence and an 8'6" cooler, you might not only see maybe 1.5 feet, because by the time you're down by the street, you're going to be lower. So that's what we're thinking, exposed no more than 2'6", if that. So anyways, we want to disguise it with black. It is a brand new cooler. It hasn't even arrived yet, but this sits where the kitchen's going to be, which is to the left of the cooler, right behind that fence. The new area that's all filled with cedar is actually going to be a bar, and he's enlarging that room to make a big bar in that area. So the next, so this is actually on the property next door, but from the street, you can kind of see this angle. Not quite this angle, you're actually a little bit further because I'm actually standing like right on the other property. But this is how well hidden this cooler is going to be. I couldn't even put one in the picture. That's a lot of landscaping there. Yes, it's got some underbrush, but it's so far away from both properties. The church right now is in the property to the right. So everybody leaves it as a cover. So, and with that fence, and of course it's got the aluminum fence that's been there forever. So we think it's well hidden. We're also going to plan to do that backside black too, so it can't be seen. But the other towards the building and the front side of the cooler won't be seen by anybody. So that, I think, if we go one more, maybe before we go there, let's go to the front again. Sorry, Tim. I just want to tell you about the sign. In the upper left-hand corner, that is their logo. But to put that logo on there, it might not show up really well. So they kind of are looking at an idea and they have an artist. They're looking at an idea to give it some interest from the street. It is a large wall. I mean, I don't remember what, 8 feet? 8 feet. So it is large, but you get that tiny logo and it's not gonna come across. So we kind of came up with a vision of adding some black features, and then maybe green. And on my color board, I just kind of chose 3 different greens to kind of give an idea of, and I don't know the artist personally, but I know I know they have a lot of painting on their fish camp now. So I believe it's the same artist. And it's my impression that she wants to do the black and the green and the trees and the Low Country Public House, maybe actual lettering that's on there. I'm not sure about that, whether they want that painted, but that will be another, you know, I think it's going to be the letters and just stick out a little bit from the wall and about that size. And we just bought some letters for another project and they turned out beautiful, and they're 8 inches and 10-inch. So they're kind of like a matte black that just sticks out a little 1/2 inch. So that's what we would like to propose and make sure she does, and I can follow that up just to make sure. The door, the overhead door is a 4-panel vision. It's all black, and it's gonna go, it's pretty high roof line inside there, and they want to have some dining. So we have a overhead door with a high lift inside, so it doesn't hang just at the 8 foot. So it actually goes up 12.5 feet. We have about 13-foot clearance in there. So that in the last slide, I think, shows the manufacturer. I think it's a Clopay. Yeah, I think. Yeah. So that's basically the configuration of it, 8x8. And the Imperial Brown is the manufacturer of the walk-in cooler that the owner bought. So, and that shows also the size. And what you're going to see is the 911 from the street, the 2411 is going to be on the length of the side of the building. So that's there. And now we go to the one before. So, and because we're asking for preliminary and final, one of the things is when this building became available, he jumped on it, but we want to turn it over fast. He wants to get in, he wants to start business. There is a large deck that went off on the back. It was already approved and permitted, and we already have that. So he's got people in the back as well, but they also want something in that courtyard, whether it's someone waiting for it to go, whether it's someone outside waiting for a table, or whether or not they're going to have seating out there. The look we're going for is the one on the upper right-hand corner. It's a wood featured with some black hardware and a simple design for the roof, just the hip roof with some rafters inside and a metal roof. So the legs, because this overhang on the garage versus the walkway, that is a very large overhang. And I'm not sure exactly if you can pick up what we're doing here, but what we're thinking is we take that beam all the way across up underneath that overhang, and then but the
Posts are up by the building.
yes, but the middle posts that are holding up that roof are on the inside of the roof overhang, because it's such a deep overhang. So then the roof hangs over the roof, and then you have the post sitting right there to the left. You can see one, and to the right you can see it by the steps, which is inside the steps, doesn't get in the way of the steps.
The overhang of the canopy overhangs the existing overhang same amount. So that theory, if the overhang wasn't there, you would be the same. So everything overlaps exact same amount. And then where it meets, it would be about a foot above where we meet that roof. So nothing's out of balance. The porch there and the garage side have the same wide overhang. So that roof at the top, when it comes over, come over to you got the building frame, so that everything would be.
And if we go back like 4 slides to the one that shows the cedar, yep, that one. So if you kind of envision that the black trimmed, wish I had a pointer. if you envision, okay, so those overhangs there, that's the 2 feet. Yeah, they, and then the post down the side, and then the hip roof about the same slope going over the eaves, about the same distance of about 2 feet. And then, of course, we would have to add the gutters on the inside to catch that rain. I keep saying hip. I apologize. No, we're doing, we're doing another project right now, and it's all about the hip roof.
So another thing we would.
You're gonna be seeing me in about the next month.
Another thing we would do when we did it, so when you're looking up, because you got the beams and the big brackets, flat brackets and stuff. What we would do is the plywood, we would put good plywood facing down. So we can stain all of that, not have pits in there, with a finished look underneath. And if we had any jumps, we put a back strip. To finish that, when you look up, it's finished. One or the other. We're not gonna just put it up there and look at the backside of our steep grade plywood. Y'all get it up.
All right, thank you. Any comments?
Did you have elevations of the left side?
I realized I didn't do that, but I do have a picture to show you.
Are you planning to put cedar on that, whatever it is,
No,
It sits like this.
with the ramp?
It sits at an angle, so you don't see that left side.
so,
From the road.
so this is the building here. As it is, well, this is maybe 3 months ago. So this is the cedar with the open. This is gonna be the ramp, well, the ramp's already there, and that takes you to the back, which takes you to the deck. So this wall, this is gonna be cedar, this wall here is this. color.
Concrete block down there.
It's concrete block,
So it's just painted like the courtyard?
it's this color. It's called Chapman. So it kind of blends in with this color scheme.
Pretty good.
Were you planning on staining the existing fence cedar stain?
We haven't really, well, wait, the front fence. I think
They're
we want to keep that
they're gonna
black.
leave it black a lot, just like the door.
I mean,
garage
the
door.
two rail fence, the privacy fence.
The privacy fence?
Oh, it's privacy.
Oh,
Yeah, we can. Sure.
but that make it.
Well, it ought to be sealed with something.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. It's a matter of you want some color on it. I agree with that.
Well, just to make it part of the architecture too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an outlier, really. It kind of doesn't get along with anything else.
Standard to match cedar, would you paint it black, match the other, or black? Match?
I think
Cedar color.
Exactly. Maybe just a little lighter or dark.
That's close.
I'd go lighter,
Close.
dark, yeah.
You just don't want it to clash.
Right.
Can you put that aside?
And really, I think if you put,
It's not like fence, so it's easy to do.
Well, you want to preserve it. If you don't, I mean, treated lumber doesn't last these days. 6 years is all it'll last if you don't seal it. Treated lumber ain't worth 2 cents. Unless it's in ground treated.
but I do think I like the way you explained fence height and the cooler and all that stuff. If you put a crepe marble right in front of that fence, that thing will go away.
It will, it'll
Or a couple black
disappear,
turtles or whatever,
disappear.
so
Yeah.
that would just be a suggestion, so.
I think there's one closer to the road.
That,
But you talk about like right in the center where that cooler is.
Sure.
6 rows in. You won't
You
see-
never
you
even
don't
see
see it
it.
at all.
So, if
Stain
you-
that fence and then put that there and then you rub it off.
so can we treat that fence and stain it, cure it to just a little bit lighter than what the cedar's gonna be, so it doesn't look like off?
No,
anymore?
nobody will know. Just you, you're the only one.
And Nancy, no extra signs like at the fish camp on the fence. I'm just gonna throw that out there now. No extra signs on the fence like they have at the fish camp.
Right.
3 hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, on the backside, that's fine. I don't care. I can't see it. They won't be happy, but No extra signs on that.
I think that they don't. I think that canopy thing you're doing, I don't really have a problem with it. If it's, I would say that if it's really in period keeping with the house or whatever, it seems like you would just do an arbor, a flat roofed arbor that's sloped enough to drain. Call it a day, but I mean,
You know, when they come down, this. I didn't do really scared, make it think something stuff, you know, we talk about sales and stuff like this. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna hold it up, but
I think you'll be all right there.
It'll look good.
Mm-hmm.
It'll add interest.
any other comments or questions, concerns?
We saw that with those black brackets. And that's.
Where do people park here anyway?
Side and back.
Back in, he's got.
Yeah.
I mean, they both on
Coffee shop
gravel,
on the
they
left
both on
side.
grass.
You can. Yeah. Yeah, there's a large gravel parking lot. There's the driveway here that kind of comes up to the front to where the existing garage is.
You're gonna have to put in a paved handicap parking spot.
Already there.
Already got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're operational with ledger with everything, so.
Yeah.
Up until like.
Y'all own that, Edward?
Yeah.
Y'all do, don't you? Yeah.
That parking lot's hidden. I mean, you don't really see it like Edward said. It's-
That was reviewed by staff and it does meet the landscape requirements, et cetera. It's split between the two, the Lux and this one. You have 4 feet of landscaping on both sides of the property line, so it meets the 8.
It looks pretty natural the way it is. Looks nice.
Well, let's get these folks out of here. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
I have one question, if we can get your, go back to, and I know Edward's
Don't oversell it.
I would like to. How high do you think, so we don't go too high or too low? So 2 feet above that lowest, roof, that hip roof, that like the gable roof is gonna hit the hip roof, like 2 feet above,
Well,
18 inches?
you ought to keep the same roof slope. Yeah. So whatever it takes, and then you need about 18 inches at least from the bottom of that new roof to the old roof.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, somewhere where they come across and marry, keep it anywhere from 12 to 18 inches.
Yeah, 12 to 18
Let
inches.
everything back in.
And try not to go higher than
You
the.
don't build it,
that roof.
you want that thing to feel high.
No.
How are you down?
The idea was to try that.
Yeah.
Maybe some falls.
You don't want to.
All right, can we make a motion for final approval?
Make a motion, final approval.
For a second,
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, I think I want to.
Thank you very much.
Might be a question. So we can figure out that signage, everything, okay? Bring it. Got it.
Thank you, guys.
One thing is we got a permit, we're working inside already because, you know, naturally they could have opened the way it is. They run out of money, the canopy may wait. Month or two, but I just.
In business a
So
little.
was there anything you need to go over with us?
No, there's nothing under miscellaneous. We just need.
All right, motion.
Adjourn?
Hear your motion for adjournment?
A motion for.
Candy seconded. All in favor,
Second.
Say aye. Aye.
All these-